everybody. Welcome to another episode of Chasing Labels. That kind of an abrupt music pause there. Sorry about that.
That's
I just
okay.
wanted
You're catching me off guard left and right. It's all
well,
right.
That's what I do. That's what I do.
Mm.
But here we are once again for another fun-filled episode of Chasing Labels, spine number 137. I feel like there's something important about 137. I don't know what it is. Something about that number.
I think isn't that room 137 in The Shining?
Is that what it is?
The room with the woman in the bathtub.
I know what you're talking about, but
so.
is that the number?
I believe so.
137.
I could be way off on that, which wouldn't be the first time.
Hi, Horror Honey. Thank you for joining us as always. Of course, Josephine's got a bunch of hot takes.
Yes.
Tons of things that I cannot read on this show because then it would just be the Josephine show. But she says, "Hey, of course, thank you." Reading. She's always reading. She's always watching. Always listening. Tons of things. But how's it been going? How's the last since the last time I saw you?
It's going okay. It's going okay. We're I don't know. March was agonizingly slow, and I feel like April is speeding by too fast.
I feel like you went to the theater a lot lately.
I've seen some things. I'm catching up on things, seen some things.
I guess a lot for me is one time.
Yeah, I guess
at least one is a lot for me because I don't ever get to go. So, but I know you've been at least a few times. I know we were just talking off camera about Civil War.
Yeah, Alex Garland's new film.
Yeah,
a film with a lot of chatter, a lot of people talking.
Yeah.
A lot of people like it. A lot of people don't like it. It's divisive, I guess you could say. The discourse
is it divisive or divisive? How do you? I mean,
I say divisive.
I
Maybe
say
it's just
divisive.
a pronunciation thing.
I say divisive. I don't know why. I just go. I don't know. But I really want to see. Alex Garland is always somebody that's pushing. I think pushing. I mean, I wouldn't say pushing boundaries, but he's pushing the audience. And we need more. We always need filmmakers pushing the audience.
Yeah, there's a lot of his work that I've liked. Ex Machina, I liked a lot. Annihilation, I thought was incredible.
I think Annihilation. I think I was talking with some other people about him recently, and they said Annihilation was his best movie, and I said, I can't disagree with that. I think if I'm wanting to rewatch one. Ex Machina, I like rewatching a lot, but I can't deny how awesome Annihilation is. It's one of the movies that the more you watch it, the more you discover about it, the more you.
Right.
It's such a world he creates that it's just so unique.
What's fascinating about that is I actually went and read the book afterward after seeing the movie. The book is rather different than the movie. Yeah. Rather different. If anything, actually, the book is the first in a series of books that's within that world. So obviously things get fleshed out more over time because that movie is like a mystery wrapped in an enigma. if you know what I'm saying. It's such mesmerizing filmmaking.
Horror Honey did not like Civil War.
Okay, I could understand that entirely.
But she does like Garland too, though.
Yeah, it's interesting. Civil War, I think. Judging from the trailer, I think people thought the film was going to be much different than what it is. It's not a traditional movie in a plot sense. You know what I mean? You're expecting a movie that's going to show you a civil war with the title of Civil War, and it's a lot more about a human perspective of what a civil war in our modern time would look like.
Yeah.
And it's a kind of a slower character piece with tenseful moments, some action-filled moments, including a third act, action sequence. I thought it was very good, to be honest, for what it is. Once I made my peace with what this film is and understanding what it is, it's also a movie that, like I was telling Steven off camera, it doesn't spoon feed you anything. It's not a movie that's going to give you a lot of information that you so desperately want so you can put the pieces of the film together. It's kind of just giving you a little bit, like the bare minimum, and kind of letting you as a viewer explore those ideas yourself through discourse, I guess. But yeah, it's a movie I'm probably going to revisit once, of course, it hits physical media, which is what we do here. Yeah, so that was kind of the big old news of the movie theater world. Do want to follow up, Steven? Remember last time we were talking about a movie I was waiting to get in the mail?
Mm-hmm.
and it did come finally.
Okay.
The Odyssey is over, Stephen. You can put it to rest now. Oh, it finally came
Thank
in.
thank fucking God.
Thank goodness.
Can we?
Um,
Can we? This is it.
this is
Episode
it now.
130. This is the importance of this episode. 137 is
Well,
that we finally can have you owning this film and
yes,
then not bringing it up
first
again.
time, first time I've ever owned it in any format. Um, it was available forever. Watched it too, Stephen. Double bonus there. Yeah, it looks fantastic.
Yeah.
Kino does a really good job with their 4Ks. Like
Yeah.
I've been incredibly impressed with what they do. Um, yeah, it makes me want to get a lot more of their 4Ks, to be honest. So see that in the future too, because the Kino sale is still going on up until next Monday. So a week from now is when it actually ends, and they do
Mhm.
have some 4Ks on sale in there as well. A little bit cheaper than you would find normally on like Amazon and such and Orbit DVD. But yeah, so I just wanted to follow up of this long-awaited Odyssey.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you could get that finally over with. It's had like this series has been going on for a while now. So,
Forever.
but yes, I appreciate that. Hopefully I'll get to see it before it leaves theaters. I don't know. It's these days I just can't get out of the house by myself to see movies. It's not one that I think my wife wants to see, so I'm gonna have to see it on my own. And so we'll see. If anything, you'll hear about. I'll tell you my opinion on Civil War when it hits. I'll probably if it hits video, renting, I might spend the extra just to see it right away.
Well, yeah, it would. Yeah, for renting when they usually come out is what, like $20? It's basically what you would spend going to the theater anyway.
I might do it because I really want to see this film. So maybe in a month or so when it's finally rentable.
Yeah, how fast the turnaround now between theatrical release and when it's available, on demand to rent is like 3 weeks now.
Yeah, it's
Like
crazy.
absurdly short amount of time.
But they had to come up with a strategy when they started doing this thing, and they kind of made their bed when it came to streaming and putting out movies earlier on streaming. They had to find that equilibrium, and I think making it available to rent at a price very similar to what you would spend at the movie theater was about the only thing they could do. And then after a few maybe a month of that price, then it goes to a cheaper renting price. Or it goes to the service that's connected to the movie that made the production.
Yeah, it's a whole multi-step process before it ever gets to
physical
Blu-ray or 4K or
which some
DVD.
of them never get there.
The big hubbub this week, and then we've been talking about, Steven, is that Apple has no plans to release Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon in physical form.
Well, it's because Criterion will do it.
That's the hope. That's the hope.
Come on, guys.
Yeah,
come on, guys.
This whole thing started with. I saw this tweet of someone who works at a library, and they said that it's been like removed from their system to reserve for when it comes out, leading them to believe that it's not coming out at all, and that set a whole fervor into the physical media enthusiast world.
I feel pretty confident that Scorsese would not make a deal to make a movie that he wouldn't be basically guaranteed that this movie's going to eventually make its way to physical media.
Right.
It's part of his who he is. Like, and I bet you it's even possible that they were like, hey, just let Criterion take care of it, and it's probably part of the deal. It's going to happen.
Quite possible. There is a French release of it out already. Of Killers of the Flower Moon, and there's a 4K steelbook that you can import from France. Unfortunately, it is region locked, so if you don't have a region-free 4K player, then you're kind of stuck. But so technically, there is a physical release of it already. So
there is, but yeah, if you're talking about,
I know what they're saying. I know what the world is saying.
Yeah, sure. But
I understand the plight.
It's going to happen. Most of Scorsese's recent work has been going to Criterion, so I think you're going to see it there eventually.
Yeah, but we'll be talking about Criterion later on in this episode.
Yeah, it did get announced today.
Yeah, I had a feeling.
But we're good. I think we could talk about these.
Fortunately, I've seen 4 out of the 6 announcements.
What's up? Just saying what's up to one of our fans.
Yes, I know. I know you weren't saying what's up to me because I've already been talking this whole time. But yeah, so luckily what they announced today, I had seen 4 out of 6 of the movies. I'm aware of the other two, and it's gonna I thought June was a great month. July for Criterion is looking to be even better. So we will obviously get into that.
Yeah.
So, um, any other news? I feel like there was something else that happened this week.
There's always stuff that's
There's
happening, man.
always there was some type of
OJ Simpson died.
that did happen. I'm trying to was there any distribution news or anything like that, or did I completely just
Well,
completely forget about it?
I think one of the things you might be talking about is the deaf crocodile.
Yes,
Going off on their own, and
that's
they're
what it
teaming
was.
up with Diabolic DVD.
Yes, and I
Yeah,
thought that was something that we had talked about last time, but no, it was Altered Innocence going over to MVD was
yeah.
last time. So this is
There's a
Death
lot of these
Crocodile.
partner labels are they're they've ran their course and
Well,
are moving
yeah,
on to do different partnerships.
from what we've seen over the time that we've covered this world here, it's they kind of start out there, get their footing, and then kind of move on to another plateau, if you will, another place.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully, you get successful enough. You can venture out on your own, and that's. I mean, I think what's great about it is not only did Vinegar Syndrome gave them a platform to get noticed, and then hopefully go out on their own, but this now vacate spots for other potential labels.
Indeed,
Other
Deaf Crocodile has been around kind of since we started. I think early on, we talked a little bit about their stuff before they were even a partner label at Vinegar Syndrome. We had talked about Ilya Murametz and a bunch of the early stuff that they then would release on Vinegar Syndrome's partner label, area on their website. And now they're moving over, like I said, to Diabolic DVD, which is great. We've interviewed Jesse from over there. The Deaf Crocodile guys put out some of the most interesting films
dude. Yeah,
you will ever see.
yeah.
Truly,
I
most interesting stuff. I've got to get more of this stuff in my collection.
I actually ordered their most recent release.
Nice.
And our friend Ryan from Disconnected did him and Will Dotson did a feature on some
Oh
feature work
yes,
on there. So I was like, hell yeah, I'm definitely. And the movie looked interesting, so I was like, I'm definitely getting that release.
yeah.
So
A lot of their stuff. It ranges too. Like
yeah,
it's mostly like kind of Eastern European, Russian stuff. But it's like um animated films and all kinds of
mhm.
things there. The only Deaf Crocodile film I have currently is Zero Grad, which was one of the earlier films.
That's a cool
Uh,
movie. Yeah,
yeah, and if you've seen the movie, the slipcover makes a lot of sense. Especially
yeah,
this guy's head here
yeah.
makes a lot of sense. What an interesting kind of satirical political film from the 80s. But yeah, there's a couple of films I still want to get from theirs. Was it Assassin of the Czar? The one
Mhm.
with Malcolm McDowell?
That was their first release, I
Yeah, that
believe.
was an early I know
That was their
we talked about it when it came out here.
yeah.
And that was one that's still I gotta get my hands on.
Did you get the Pied Piper yet?
No, but I saw the Pied Piper. I thought the
Yeah,
movie was amazing. It was
yeah,
like that stop motion animation,
yeah.
tale of the Pied Piper, but the animation in it was stunning, and no dialogue in it at all. It was all just physical movements of these, stop motion animation characters. Fantastic, fantastic work. So that was the news. Was Deaf Crocodile making their way over the Diabolic? They are going to be, I think, releasing their first release of theirs um, with Diabolic in July.
Yeah.
And it's called The Hunt. Oh, gee, and I forgot what
Ah,
it's called.
gee.
No,
How do you not
no,
know
see,
this right off the top of your head? Come on now.
I know it's good. Ironically, is I was trying to look. Um,
Let's
I
see
was
if I
trying
can
to
find
look
this before
for.
you.
Yeah, are you gonna find it before me? Oh,
I
it's
don't
a
know.
race. It's a race.
It's yeah. We'll see. You'll win because I don't know where the hell to look.
And neither do I. I don't even remember the name of the movie. It's
Uh, uh,
The Savage Hunt of King Stalk from 1980, and that's coming out in July, I believe.
all right.
That was part of the press release. I
Hell
tried
yeah.
to find it to watch. It is available on YouTube with an English dub, and I
Okay.
didn't want to watch the English dub. You know how I feel about that.
I
I gotta watch
know.
the subtitles.
Hey, if it's the only way you can fucking watch it, I mean, that's just me. I mean,
The
sometimes,
irony is that I could find it in the original language, which I believe is
but
Russian, I think,
with no
with
English
no
subtitles.
subtitles, no
Yeah,
English
yeah,
subtitles.
yeah.
So doesn't really help. It doesn't really help me.
You
At
play
least.
both at the same time.
I guess. I guess. But yeah, so that's what's coming out with Death Crocodile, very
Yeah,
very soon.
that's
So
awesome.
now I think we're all caught up. We can dive into what ended up being a kind of quiet 2-week period until today. And the irony is that this week there's going to be some more news coming too. I know
Yeah,
Imprint's going to drop tomorrow. And I think Terror Vision's also dropping either tomorrow or the next day.
yeah,
So we're gonna get things now. Now that we're gonna be off for 2 weeks or so.
yeah.
So yeah, let's get into it, shall we? Where do you want to start first, Steven?
How about we do the Kino stuff? You want to do the Kino stuff?
Okay, that sounds good to me.
All right.
Um, we've got I think there's about three ones that I'm interested in, and I'm gonna start out with the biggest one for me. I've been dying to
Okay.
talk about this for days, Steven.
All right.
Um, Orson Welles' adaptation of
Yeah.
Macbeth is
I knew you were gonna
getting
say. I knew you were gonna say this.
it's getting a
Yeah.
third Blu-ray release.
Okay. Yeah. Let's do this again, guys.
Let's do it again. Roll it out. I would have loved had this been a 4K, but I kind of understand because I think the only people who would have bought it would be me and other Orson Welles enthusiasts. Um, and the irony is that if this sells really well, I know they're probably going to end up re-releasing it in 4K, and I'm probably going to end up buying it again.
Mhm.
So I tell the story many times. I've got the original Olive Films Blu-ray release from like 2012 or so. And then they re-released it in their Olive Signature Edition in 2016, I think. Don't quote me on these dates. I probably should look them up, but who knows? So that was kind of a big release. That's probably the release many people have right now currently. And then now Kino is re-releasing a Blu-ray edition again. And the main difference between the 2016 Olive Film Signature Edition and this release is that this current release is going to have a new 4K restoration done in
Hmm.
2022. Kind of big news. What unfortunately is another difference is it's missing two special features that Olive Signature Edition had or has, because you can still get your hands on it. It's missing, I believe, adapting Shakespeare on film, and it's missing We Walk Again. Missing adapting Shakespeare on film is a new featurette with says directors Carlo Carle and Billy Morissette talk about their appreciation for Macbeth and Orson Welles' film. And then We Walk Again, presented here as an excerpt from We Walk Again, a 1937 WPA documentary containing scenes from Orson Welles' Federal Theater project production of Macbeth. So back when he was doing stage productions.
Yeah.
Those two are not featured on this Kino release as of what I've seen so far in all the two press releases they've had.
We got a real quick. I'm sorry. We got a comment here. Hey guys, always like Roman Polanski's Macbeth the most. Just a masterpiece in every form.
I remember when that came out from Criterion.
Yeah.
Ironically, I haven't seen that adaptation.
Yeah, I get a little confused with the adaptations because like it's been adapted so many times.
Yeah,
I get confused with which director directed which one that I've seen. I've seen the Polanski, but I haven't seen the Wells. And yeah, I mean, I'll be excited to see this because Wells is is this one that they probably messed with a lot, I'm sure too as well.
Yes,
Studio.
that's why there's two versions.
Yeah.
So there is the 1948 version and there's the 1950 version, and you may be wondering, what is the difference between the two? Well, the 1948 is a 119-minute roadshow edition, and then the 1951 is the much more truncated 85-minute re-release of the movie. So you're talking about a significant amount of time difference and movie difference there. So yeah, those are available. There's also a new commentary by Tim Lucas. It brings over the commentary from Wells biographer Joseph McBride, as well as a couple of other special features, but it does use the same artwork that was on the original Olive Films release, which is just the poster art, which looks fantastic. It looks like a painting. I've always loved this adaptation. It's like a fever dream, like just crazy surreal art house version of Macbeth.
Like one of his previous films. I'm blanking on the name. What's the one he did?
The Trial?
The Trial. That's what I'm thinking of.
The one he did.
So it's The Trial, but Macbeth.
Kind of, yes. What is interesting about Orson Welles' Shakespearean adaptations is they all have that similar type of feeling where they're just
Yeah.
super avant-garde, like Othello, um, is another one of his that got a Criterion release. That was thought to be lost for the longest time, and then they found it in somebody's archive, or at least a good print in somebody's archive. I think that's what they ended up using for that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, there's a lot of his work that is unfortunately lost. A lot of it that he never got to actually make in general. He did a whole movie of The Merchant of Venice, and then the whole film, all the film reels got stolen, like just got stolen, and never heard from again, basically. So we completely lost out on that. But yeah, this release here is going to be a high priority for me, and I think it's coming out June 11th, so which is right around the corner. It's 6 days before my birthday, so
Mm.
it's the timing. It couldn't be much better.
Amazing.
Couldn't be much
Amazing.
better.
Amazing timing.
I'm just waiting for it to go on pre-order essentially.
Yeah. Hello, Josephine.
So the
Yeah.
next one, I guess we'll switch from one of my favorites to one of your favorites, Steven.
What?
Nicolas Cage's Snake Eyes is getting
Whoa.
a 4K re-release.
It's more like Keanu Reeves, what I just did.
Yes,
But,
yes,
but
it still works. Still works.
I get. Yeah, I don't know
The
something.
Brian De Palma film from the '90s. Underrated Brian De Palma and underrated Nick Cage, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
I recently rewatched. I think I rewatched it last year because I finally bought the Blu-ray, and I really like this movie. The beginning of this movie is really good. That whole first act, when like the incident that kind of kicks off everything happens, is incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. The editing, the camera work, and Nicolas Cage is walking and talking, and he's out of his
Yeah.
damn mind because he's Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
Incredible work. Then the movie
Yeah.
kind of settles in, and it kind of, I think, falls back a little bit. But that opening sequence really, really good.
During this time, the two movies that I always used to get them confused, but then now now I'm like they're completely different. This and 8mm used to be like, oh, these two, because it's just they both had a similar, like the posters had a similar vibe to them. Like this, I don't know. One was like he's watching snuff films. Another one,
Yeah.
he's
Yeah,
I don't know.
8mm is Joel Schumacher.
Yeah.
After he did Batman Forever, he was like, I'm gonna do
a
one of the
palate cleanser.
harshest movies you can see. I'm
gonna do a palate cleanser, 8mm.
Palate cleanser. It's like it's like grinding the palate into the dirt. That's 8mm.
And I think after that, I think he did I know he did Tigerland with Colin Farrell, like somewhere right after that. I think maybe a couple movies between. Maybe
I should probably look that up.
Joel Schumacher's got some cool movies that people don't talk about.
Yeah,
that's one. Tigerland. That's a fucking cool movie. It's a good war movie.
Well, I think after that he may have done The Phone Booth. I think Tigerland was a little after that.
That's another cool movie.
It's a movie I didn't appreciate when I was younger. I saw it in the theater back when it came out 2002, and I was 16, and I had no appreciation for movies whatsoever.
I liked this movie I liked that movie when it first came out. So
no, you were much more mature than I was.
I know. Did you get Sex Mission from Vinegar Syndrome?
I did not. I did not.
Yeah, I know you said you loved it though, right? Didn't you like it a lot?
It was a interesting dystopian movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird Polish sci-fi film. What is interesting that Def Crocodile also puts out kind of those weird sci-fi films from Eastern Europe during the Cold War, which are like slyly taking shots at fascism and communism and all that kind of stuff as well. I kind of like when filmmakers did that, like they were making fun of the society in which they lived in that would have crushed them if they knew what they were doing. I feel like Kozlowski did that a lot with his work during the 70s and 80s.
I mean, that movie you were talking about earlier, Zero Grad.
Yeah, Zero Grad literally does that.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at Joel Schumacher now. Yeah, he did Batman Forever, A Time to Kill, which I think is
fucking great,
underrated
courtroom drama with Matthew McConaughey at his best at that time.
Yes, Samuel Jackson, Sandra Bullock, I believe.
Sandra Bullock, Oliver Platt,
Donald
Donald Sutherland.
Yeah, and then
Great,
he did
great
Batman and Robin, and then after that, he did 8mm.
8mm. Where's Tigerland?
And then
2004.
Tigerland is after that, you are right.
Damn,
Well,
I'm
he
thinking.
did a movie called Flawless as well in '99.
Forget about that
Then he did the music video for Bush, that song "Letting the Cable Sleep," underrated song.
one.
Then Tigerland, Bad Company, and then Phone Booth.
Is Bad Company that one with Chris Rock?
It is. The
Yeah.
one with Chris
Damn.
Rock
Damn, I'm
and
good.
that Anthony Hopkins? It is
Man,
indeed.
This coffee's working today,
I
guys.
know, it's the caffeine, it'll get you moving.
Second cup today.
Nice,
Okay.
nice. Um, so yeah, so Snake Eyes, Brian De Palma, um, yeah, that makes a lot of sense because they've already put Brian De Palma's Dress to Kill in 4K, through Kino, and I'm trying to think of what other Brian De Palma got a 4K. Oh, oh, Steven.
Well, you got it.
What
You
a
own it.
transition. Carrie.
Dang. Ah, God, it's so orange.
I know.
Yeah.
Talk about it. Yeah, this actually came in last week as well. Already watched this as well. Also looks very, very good. Very soft cinematography in this. I don't know if it just had been so long since I'd seen this movie, but very soft, like 1970s, just aesthetic and palette. But yeah, this of course got a 4K from Scream Factory as well, and it's got one from there, one from Arrow. Um, yeah, so I'm glad Brian De Palma is getting more back in the conversation. I think more people need to like go back and revisit his work, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Didn't his film Blowout get a 4K re-release from Criterion?
Believe so. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, we got a bunch of De Palma on 4K now that I think about it. Scarface got a 4K release as well. Huh, interesting. Just it's all hitting me now. It hit me in a wave. Hit me in a wave. I was doing
It was a Sisters got a release. I mean, not 4K,
no.
but yeah, that.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
Sisters
mean,
got released. There's an early Brian De Palma there was an early Brian De Palma box set put out by Arrow a few years ago that I thought kind of went under the radar. It may be out of print now or just harder to find, but it's like his early, like late 60s work that when he was working with Robert De Niro early on.
yeah. Well, that's what the set is. Is it's a Robert
Yeah.
De Niro De Palma set.
Yeah, and it was like it's De Niro before before anyone knew who he was.
Taxi Driver, yeah.
Before Taxi Driver, before Godfather Part 2, before
Yeah.
Most of his 70s work.
The one of my favorites, Scorsese's son of a bitch, just got the
Ra
movie.
Raging Bull?
No, Mean Streets.
Mean Streets.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
early.
Mean Street before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So, Snake Eyes, and then what was the other one that I wanted to talk about from that? Oh, yeah.
Narrow Margin.
Yeah, Narrow Margin. This is a movie I had never seen before, and I watched it for the first time. I had heard about it many times. It's been available from Kino on Blu-ray for many years, and it's always in like their sales.
Yeah.
It's been in like every single one of their sales, and it's getting a 4K UHD re-release. It's from a master by StudioCanal. It's a 2-disc release. It's got 2 audio commentaries. It's got some making of featurettes on there. And this is a movie starring Gene Hackman and Aaron Archer. And this is a neo noir. This is a really good neo noir. It's very tight. It's very good from 1990. And what happens is this woman sees a murder. She goes on like a blind date. Like there's some guy who's traveling to Los Angeles on business or whatever, and she gets hooked up on a blind date with this guy, and they go back to his hotel room, and she goes to the bathroom, and then these ruffians kind of come in, his associates, and they end up killing him, and she witnesses the murder, and it just so happens that the person who comes in is like this big time gangster guy that the like the attorney general, not the attorney general, but yeah, that a big time like government attorney has been trying to get him for years and hasn't been able to get him, and that happens to be played by Gene Hackman. But what happens is she goes into hiding in Canada, and Gene Hackman goes to convince her to testify against him, and they find out where she is, so they go after her as well to try to kill her. And it's her and Gene Hackman traveling on a train to get to Vancouver to like get back to California to get her into hiding and stuff. And the whole time the whole movie basically takes place on this train, and it's them trying to avoid these assassins that have been sent after her. Really good. I really like it a lot. Really
I
good
like a good.
cast.
I mean, I like a good train. It's just like a good submarine movie, like a
Oh
good
yeah,
train movie.
it's
Good
so
train movie.
Hitchcockian.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
so- Hitchcock loved his train movies.
This movie, would you say, if we were playing Unwatched Pile, this matched with Under Siege from Steven Seagal? Seagal would
I've
be
never
good.
seen Under Siege, so I can't.
What the fuck is wrong with you,
I haven't seen a lot of Steven Seagal
dude?
or any
What the
Steven
hell,
Seagal, really.
dude?
I know. I don't
Dude, you
even
better
own
buy
any.
some. I'm gonna send you some Steven Seagal, so you have to do it on the Unwatched Pile.
Yeah, so I have to go on the unwatched pile. The
I'm
irony
gonna.
is that this would have made a great like noir Vember unwatched pile film, in my opinion. But this film is directed, Steven, by maybe
Peter Hyams.
Peter Hyams. Yeah, I was
I
saying you're
broke
not
it.
going to guess it.
No,
But of
I
course,
know.
every time we bring up Peter Hyams, we have to mention he directed End of Days with Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Yeah.
who fights the devil in that movie because the end of days are coming, and Gabriel Byrne is the devil.
Gabriel Burns
I just love just kicking out that premise to people.
He's just going into restaurants, grabbing women's breasts, and then blowing up the restaurant
Yes,
afterwards.
that's what the devil does.
That's what he
That's what the
does.
devil does.
Yeah, you know.
Peter Hyams also directed a Time Cop. He's directed Sudden Death.
Another, you know.
He directed The Presidio, Running Scared. 2010, The Year We Made Contact, which is, I guess, the sequel to 2001: A Space Odyssey. But he also directed the movie Outland, which I like to bring up every time because it's super underrated. And does have a Blu-ray release. Outland does, and I wish I had it. Steven, you brought up O.J. Simpson earlier. He directed Capricorn 1, which I believe O.J. Simpson was in. Yes, he was.
Yeah.
So there's that for you.
Cool.
But yeah, so Narrow Margin, highly recommend if you haven't seen the movie to give it a watch. But I was pleasantly surprised because I had heard about it for years and just had never watched it. So moving on from there, Steven, where do we want to venture to now? I gotta look at our notes because I don't know what
we gotta. I didn't get. I was really hoping to watch this film, but I think you did. StudioCanal put out a film called The Small Back Room.
Yes.
And I really wanted to watch this because this is a film directed by Powell and Pressburger.
Yes, it is Michael Powell and Emma Pressburger.
Yeah, so tell us about that, please.
Yeah, 1949. So this film is interesting because maybe I had heard about it before, but I'm not quite sure. It got a new 4K restoration. There's a couple of new special features. This is being put out by StudioCanal in I think their vintage classics line that they've got going on, and only Blu-ray. It's not a 4K. And what is interesting about this movie is, on paper, it's going to sound perhaps a little familiar to people. So Sammy Rice was the Army's finest bomb disposal officer until he was injured in the war. Now part of a specialist backroom team, he dismantles the booby trap devices being dropped by Nazi bombers. He falls in love.
Sorry, you said booby. Sorry.
Yes, I did. It does say booby trapped. He falls in love with Susan, a colleague, and the two begin a secret affair. However, embittered by life, he feels inferior as a lover, inferior as a man, unable to wear a uniform, inferior in his work. Although a brilliant scientist, he allows himself to be exploited by his power-hungry boss and haunted by his past. And he drowns his sorrows in alcohol. So that's kind of the movie that it is. It's more of a character piece exploring this kind of man and his self-hatred, really. Yeah, his depression, but of course, this is the 1940s, so no one really is taking depression seriously. No one really knows how to, deal with it. This is a time, of course, where I don't even think we knew as a society what PTSD was for soldiers in a war. I think in World War I, they called it shell-shocked. And I don't think they came up with the PTSD moniker, I think, till after Vietnam, which was about 20 years or so after World War II. So the movie's more about him dealing with his own issues, but also having to deal with this mission that he gets put on as well. So what is happening is Nazis are dropping this new type of bomb that are it's essentially in like these thermos canisters, and they have to figure out how to defuse them. And he's an expert at that, so he's
It,
trying to figure that out. Like that's
you know,
part of the movie, but he's also has this plot line of him trying to deal with this relationship with this woman that's kind of tumultuous because he's got all this baggage with him as well. It's a good film. Like I'm describing a really, really good film, but I don't feel like the film is truly excellent in delving into those things.
mhm.
It just kind of touches upon it and kind of just drives the plot forward in that regard. Had this film been made today, it would have been, I think, have a more richness to it.
Well,
Um,
I was gonna say was
yeah,
this idea reminds me it's obviously handled differently, but especially with the way you're describing the main character of this film, but it makes me think about The Hurt Locker.
yeah, that was the main thing I thought about too.
Yeah,
Was the Hurt Locker?
very similar. I mean, he's got the similar job, bombs disposal, and in that film, it's about how somebody deals with being in war, and how you can actually get addicted to that lifestyle somehow.
Mm,
It's got a um it can really mess with you being a
yeah,
part of that world for too long.
and what is interesting is that he has to grasp with the idea of being kind of removed from that world as well because he's got this kind of debilitating injury
Yeah.
that the only way he can kind of deal with this injury is through like basically self-medication of like alcohol and
It,
they hint at drug use or perhaps past history of drug use, but obviously it's the 40s in British cinema and they can't really show him shooting up heroin or anything like that. They can't really
well,
go into that
it,
stuff.
it's also making me think about William Wyler's Best Years of Our Lives.
Yes,
A little bit.
yeah. Like there's moments where, he's of course having to deal with alcoholism, and even then, like you're saying, Steven, that movie wouldn't come out until what like I think it was around
50s.
that time. I
It's
think it was
50, like
around that time.
55, 50 something.
Yeah, let me actually look that up. Are you talking about? Did you say?
Best Years of Our
Oh,
Lives.
okay, you're talking about. I was thinking of the Lost Weekend for some reason.
Lost Weekend, that's like
Yeah,
1956.
Best Years of Our Lives was 1946.
Okay, I was way off then.
Yeah,
I was a whole decade off.
the Lost Weekend is 1945.
Damn, I was way
So
off.
we
I'm
are
I'm
kind of
stuck in
in
the
that
50s.
realm.
Stuck in the fucking 50s, apparently.
I guess so. I guess so. So the small back room is an interesting title because it's dealing with the literal small back room as these kind of like kind of secret scientific explorations into diffusing and figuring out these bombs. But in a way, he's kind of also trapped in a small back room in life.
Yeah,
And the movie is kind of about him trying to kind of perhaps break out of that.
yeah.
It's good. Michael Pollan and Emma Pressburger, I don't think they've ever delivered a bad movie, I would say. Not really. Kind of a dynamic duo of directing that were kind of unmatched in many ways.
Yeah,
Um,
that another one of their war films is really good, that 42nd Parallel. Um, that's
yeah.
another one I wanna see a good release of. I got, like, a French release of it or something.
Yeah,
Um,
that movie, I think is it the f hold on, I'm thinking of the 49th parallel, am I
or
thinking of
is it
some
no, it is the 49th. I said
yeah, the one from
42nd.
1941 with Leslie Howard.
Yeah.
I think it only has a DVD release from, like, Criterion, I don't think it's
I
gotten a
have a
f
release of it. It's Blu-ray, but
Oh,
it's, like
okay.
it's another country, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I was just thinking in my head who released that. I think I watched that streaming before, and that's Michael Powell and Eric Pressburger. At least Eric Pressburger has a writing credit on there. But yeah, I I'm gonna get this movie in some fashion. I have a feeling that if Studio Canal is releasing it, I don't know who will release it here. Um,
Yeah.
I know Lionsgate has that deal going on with them now forever. Um, as it is, I don't know if you saw this, Steven. Lionsgate's releasing that Coppola film here in 4K,
Mm.
but it's coming with 2 less discs, which is kind of annoying. But it's much cheaper than the Studio Canal release. Was it, not one is it One to the Heart? Something like
One
that.
to something, yeah. Something like that.
Yeah, I forgot it last time too. The irony is that I did a whole, like, deep dive into into Coppola's work this weekend. And the irony is, the other night I was eating dinner and then flipping through the channels, and you know what was playing on television? Due to no one's surprise, because it's probably always playing somewhere. The Godfather was playing
Mm.
on one of the like
I think I
premium
think
cable channels.
I think it's From the Heart.
From the Heart. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Horror Honey. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, and the reason why I was doing that is because I was, um, unfortunately, Francis Ford Coppola's wife passed away,
Mm.
and I didn't realize that she was the one really responsible for Hearts of Darkness. She shot all that
Yeah.
footage, that behind the scenes footage of him during that whole tumultuous production. Truly a legend in her own right. I saw James McCoskey, who we've interviewed on here. He tweeted about it, and I was going back, and I'm like, what is the Coppola films that have gotten 4K re-releases over the last few years that I've gotta go get my hands on? And I was, I was comparing. Ironically, I was comparing the StudioCanal release of The Outsiders with the one Warner Brothers released here, and that was another situation where the one we got released here has less discs than the one that got released there. That thing had like 4 discs and a CD soundtrack. The one from StudioCanal, it was a pretty
I
big
got it.
release.
Yeah, I got it. It's one of them releases. I think you would have really enjoyed that limited edition packaging because it's like old TV packaging where it's like
Yeah, it was like a
folding out.
fold out, right? Yeah, like an
Like yeah,
accordion,
it's huge. Yeah,
accordion packaging. Um,
ridiculous, but love it.
yeah, it's still, you can still find it. It's not
Okay, good.
cheap. It's not cheap.
Yeah,
But yeah, I was just trying to see if there was a difference, like an on disc difference in terms of special features. I don't really believe there was. Um, that's always my biggest concern when it comes to Region A versus Region B, is always missing out on special features. Um, but yeah, how did we get? Oh yeah, 'cause the small back room. That's how we got here.
small back
So,
room.
so yeah, that's the Studio Canal release. Let's move along now to what else
You
do we
got
got?
Oscilloscope's got Love Life.
Yes. Okay, this movie, good movie, really good recent film. I had to rent this on Amazon to watch because there was no other place you could find it streaming anywhere. It's really good. Came out in 2022. I believe it's a Japanese film, by a director who I thought I had heard of before, Koji Fukada, but I had never seen any of this person's work until now. And I saw Love Life. The premise of this film is Taiko and her husband Jiro are living a peaceful existence with their young son Keita when a tragic accident brings the boy's long lost father Park back into her life. To cope with the pain and guilt, Taiko throws herself into helping this deaf and homeless man. So you're dealing with so much. You're dealing with tragedy. You're dealing with loss. You're dealing with past emotions, past lives crashing into what's going on at the time. It's a slow indie film, really well acted, really well directed, dealing with so much human existential crisis existence that's bred out of a tragic event that occurs. And you're also dealing with like certain cultural traditional things as well that crash into all of this. It's a really big soup of emotion that's going on in here, and you're seeing these people have to deal with it kind of in real time. And it's a very human existence. You know what I mean? Like having to deal with loss, a tragic loss, and how life perpetuates after that. Like, what do you do? How do you live? And then you have this extra baggage of this other person coming back into your life, and having to deal with that. A lot of things going on in this movie. Really, really good film. Like, I would highly recommend people spend the $5 to rent and watch this movie. Um, Very surprising that I had never heard of it before because of it being so recent. I think it probably only got probably to, like, festival circuits when it came out. That's
Probably.
kinda my assumption.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kinda my assumption.
Well, you can't know everything, Andrew.
I guess that's true.
I mean,
But then I go on to Letterboxd and I see that people watched it, and I get instantly jealous.
well,
Instantly jealous. I'm like
that's
I'm
what's
like,
that. But the
"Damn you."
thing, if you weren't still discovering things, then you would be bored
True.
with film. You know.
That is the silver
So,
lining of it all. You know,
yeah.
you're still constantly discovering movies because the catalog is so endless, you know?
Yeah. Mm.
Um, yeah, Yeah, Horror Honey. I never heard of the director either. But the movie sounded so interesting, and I waited to try to see if I could find it to watch somewhere, and it was only really available to rent. Um, and I'm glad I did because it was worth
You know,
the $5 to rent it. Yeah.
I'm looking at the filmmaker's other films, and for some reason, a film they did in 2010, um, Hospitality, sounds familiar to me. Like I feel like I've heard about this film for some reason. And the image of the poster seems
Mm,
familiar. So I don't know. He's been doing some films for a while, so might have to look into his back catalog. But
yeah, same here. Same here.
yeah,
I'm definitely interested in Love Life. Definitely a film worth it. If you like Japanese cinema, um, yeah, I think this would be definitely worth your time. Definitely worth your time to delve into. Um, so yeah, that was Oscilloscope. Um, moving on now to um into Sandpiper.
yeah.
'Cause it's a company we've talked about very sparingly
Well,
over.
they put out stuff sparingly, so
Yeah, that was also where I was going with that too. They don't
yeah.
really have a set schedule of things. Um, an interesting eclectic group of films here. Um, and the one that there's a couple that I watched all of these. Full disclosure, Stephen.
Of course you did.
So these are their what month are these coming out? I don't even know. Oh, June.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like June. So we've got biggest one for me is Warriors of Virtue. Steven, did you watch this when you were a kid? Or was I the only one?
I don't think so. I think you were the only one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I watched this movie over and over and over again when I was a kid. Um, it's like a 90s fantasy coming of age film. Um, I thought everybody loved this movie when I was a kid, and then I grew up and apparently people hated it. It was one of those where like your childhood comes crashing down around you when you become
Hmm.
an adult because you realize things you love people hate. It's like, damn, gee, I thought this shit was cool. I guess not. I guess not.
I don't know. Nothing's quite as bad as loving 90s Nickelodeon and then watching that
And then
documentary
recently
that
having it all just be
as
vomit
adults
inducing.
now. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you can't go back to that anymore.
That was about the biggest gulp of my childhood taken at once.
Yeah, I watched a
Yeah,
lot of Nickelodeon in the 90s. It was
yeah.
a good dose of Nickelodeon, Disney, and then Cartoon Network came much later, I think.
They're more adult.
Yeah, and yeah, Cartoon Network probably came later 90s, I wanna say, but anywho, back to Warriors of Virtue. The movie is directed by Ronnie Yu, and this movie is oh, man. So Ronnie Yu directed Bride of Chucky, and he directed Freddy versus Jason,
Nice.
which is not really have anything to do with this at
It
all.
doesn't, but it's a good pedigree. It's
It's
a
a
good
good
pedigree.
it's a good pull here.
Yeah.
So you get but you understand stylization, that's what I'm going for. So a young boy is whisked away to the mythical land of Tchao, where he becomes the center of a conflict between an evil lord and a group of animal warriors. So you've got these like anthropomorphic warrior kangaroos. Go with me, Steven. Go with me on this.
Hey,
Uh,
wait a second. Wait a second. Didn't we just watch him Tank Girl? Tank Girl.
yes,
So
we
is
did.
this Tank Girl sequel? Okay. All
No,
right.
it's not.
Okay.
So this kid, he's got a physical disability. He's got something wrong with his leg. I don't remember what it is, and he's getting incessantly bullied by kids for all this and stuff. And one day, like they kind of bully and pressure him into doing something, and he falls into this like water reservoir thing, and he gets sucked down, and it's this portal to this magical world of Tao. Think of like a 90s like labyrinth or something like that. And
I
there's
was gonna say just off like watching the trailer, it kind of makes me think of Legend or like
yeah, it's
yeah,
something like
yeah.
that, but these magical kangaroo warriors are like martial artists. So it's like it's got that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle
Son
live
of a
action
bit. I
vibe to
was
it. It was my
yeah.
thing. It was my thing.
Damn, man. I mean,
Yeah.
that's probably what they were thinking. They were like, "Fuck Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies.
It's
Them were
kind
so
of like
popular."
it's like
Yeah.
a mystical live action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but the turtles are now kangaroos. And
Teenage
the thing is with
kangaroos.
the turtle with these roos, they call them roos, is they all like have certain attributes. You know what I mean? They all have specific attributes, kind of like the
Does
turtle.
somebody have
I mean,
have nunchucks?
no, they all have different. Like one has a bow staff. You know what I mean? Just you gotta get one. One has a sword.
Yeah.
But this kid gets dropped into like this like medieval feud that's going on between this evil bad guy lord and these like village with these roos that protect them and stuff. So he kind of gets dropped in, and it's all about him like having to come of age and become more confident and in the middle of this conflict and just grow grow up really literally. And this movie as a kid. I watched this and owned all the action figures. Keep in mind, this movie came out in when did it come out? It came out in I
97.
want to say 1997. So I would have been like 10 years old. You know, perfect time for this type of film.
Well,
Um,
I mean, you got me sold. I'm watching this movie.
yeah, I mean,
I
it's obviously going to be dated. Do you know who's in this movie as the bad guy? Is Angus McFadden. Do you know who Angus McFadden is, Stephen?
I I'm aware. I'm aware of
Yes.
Angus. Yeah.
Angus McFadden is Robert the Bruce in
Yeah.
Braveheart.
Yeah.
Also in Saw 3. He's also in Equilibrium, but of course, I think he's probably most well known for being Robert the Bruce in Braveheart.
You know who's in this movie?
Who?
Fucking Doug Jones is in this movie.
Of course he is.
He's
I bet you
playing.
he
He's a
probably
creature.
had.
He's a got to be a kangaroo.
Yeah, I think he's one of the Roos. Yeah. Yeah. This movie was everything to me as a
You
kid.
got me. I'm watching
This
this
movie
shit.
was so
This is
everything to
gonna
me
be
as a kid.
my daughter's watching this tomorrow while we're hanging out.
Yeah, it was an MGM United Artists film from the 90s, man. This is pure nostalgia for me. The fact that this is getting a Blu-ray release is kind of mind-blowing, to be honest.
Yeah. Well,
It got a DVD release many, many years ago. Um, and I didn't think this movie would ever see the light of day. So Sandpiper, you've got my money.
got it.
You've got my wow. It's on pre-order for $30. Maybe a little steep, but I feel you.
Dude, don't you fucking complain.
I know. I'm
You're
getting
getting this movie on a Blu-ray.
yeah. The movie on a Blu-ray is even if it looks bad, it's a shock to me. Yeah. So, but a couple other films here, just because we have a little interest of time. Article 99. You want to see a movie with Kiefer Sutherland, Forrest Whitaker, Leah Thompson, Ray Liotta. Um, John C. McKinley is in this film. Um, and this movie is interesting movie. I just kind of wish it was a better film. So a group of doctors in a veterans hospital must contend with their hopeless situation, too many patients and not enough beds. And there's also like bureaucratic BS going on. Basically, all of these doctors work in this VA hospital, and the VA system, if you have any sense of the VA system, is a just kind of a bureaucratic, complete mess of inefficiency. And this movie is kind of showing that the people who run this hospital are kind of people who don't really care about the patients. They're all about like cutting costs and all this kind of stuff. And meanwhile, you've got the doctors who are like working to save people's lives, and these army veterans who have no place else to turn. All this kind of stuff. One of the veterans that kind of makes his way through the hospital is Keith David. He's kind of like a wily old veteran who knows the ways and whatnot. Kiefer Sutherland is a young doctor who's starting out there for the first time, and it's like a fish out of water situation. It's a crash course in just chaos that's going on. And he's gotta kinda like figure it out. And he and Leah Thompson have this kindling romance going on in the movie. Um, it's not a bad movie. It's worth a watch if you're interested in seeing work from um all these uh actors of the time. And the movie's directed by Howard Deutsch, who, if I recall, is I think he and I have to do the little backup here. So yeah, he's married to Leah Thompson.
Mm.
And you know the actress Zoe Deutsch?
Yes.
That's their daughter.
Mm.
So that's the connection there.
Nice. She's the one that's in was she in the movie Everybody Wants Some?
Yes.
She was the girl, yeah.
Yeah,
And
she's in Everybody Wants Some, plus
yeah,
a bunch of other movies.
yeah,
I think she's a great indie actress.
yeah.
But yeah, that's their daughter. So this is directed by Howard Deutsch. John C. McKinley plays a doctor in this film, like I said, long before he was on Scrubs as a doctor as well. So the little connection there. Um, I just saw him recently on social media. I think he was having like some type of Scrubs reunion going on. It was him and a bunch of the Scrubs cast like taking a picture together, and I don't know what they were doing. But anywho, that's a little interesting. But
Cool.
Article
Cool.
99 is this. I think it's like a fictitious thing. I don't even know if it's real. Where basically like the VA will give you this letter saying, "Hey, yes, according to Article 99, you are entitled to treatment. We just can't do it for you at this time."
Yeah.
That's basically what it is. It's basically just something like pacify the people to figure out if they're, you know, to basically pacify people who need medical care.
Yeah.
It's a whole big mess of a system. But yeah, that's um Article 99. Um Movie I watched in the last night called Winter People. It's it's a period piece starring Kurt Russell and Kelly McGillis. Kurt Russell is a widower clockmaker. He and his daughter are traveling and they end up kind of crashing their car. Um, and they in the Appalachian like mountains and like
Yeah.
this small Appalachian town, and they end up getting caught up once again in kind of this family affair, this family rivalry. Really, it's like the Hatfields and McCoys between these two families. Kelly McGillis is an unwed mother, which of course, I guess, is frowned upon in 1930s Appalachia, um, or Appalachia, depending on where you're from. Um, and and he and her end up having a romance that gets kindled, but there's certain revelations that go on of who the father of her child is, family rivalries, and all this kind of takes over. I The only way I could find this film to watch was a 360p resolution version on YouTube, which looked a little rough. I'm not gonna lie to you, Steven.
It's
A little rough.
probably doesn't look great.
Kurt Russell's face was blurred the entire time.
Yeah.
And pixelated. But the movie was fine. It's a fine melodrama as you could ever imagine. A little bit over the top for my liking, but whatever. But what is a movie here that I have to mention? It's not good. It's more interesting than anything. And I'm gonna pitch this to you, Steven, and this may sound a little nuts to you.
Okay.
So a family thing.
Seen it.
Did you see it?
Yeah, I don't
Or
have to pitch to me. I've seen
oh,
it.
you don't have to pitch it to you? So you did see it.
Yes.
What an interesting premise of a movie.
You
Not
know,
so much the fact that it's not something that occurs in life, but the fact that who is playing the roles in the film, I thought was wild to me. For those of you who don't know, a family thing, Robert Duvall is from Arkansas, and his mother passes away, and he finds out that his mother is not his mother. His mother was actually an African American woman. So Robert Duvall is half African American and half white, which to me, I couldn't kind of get over that fact because if you've seen
well,
Robert Duvall or know Robert Duvall, it's baffling.
well,
But
their explanation is that the father was white, and that the
yeah, his father is white.
male
Yeah.
dominant gene is the reason why he's white.
Right. That's which does happen in life.
Sure.
And to me, it's funny that it's Robert Duvall, and they couldn't have found anyone else to play this role other than Robert Duvall. But his mother's dying wish is that he goes and reconnects with his half brother, played by James Earl Jones, who lives in Chicago, and that's what he does. And then, kind of family bonding ensues, and confrontations ensue, and then past gets revealed and whatnot, and all these kinds of things. Yeah, Robert Duvall in this film is one of the most racist characters you will ever see in a movie. It is
It's
as off-putting as you can imagine. Um, Even when he gets to Chicago, and
it,
he's just
it
still is
the
awful.
the movie
Oh,
made me think of Green Book. Like
yeah, I can see that. I
it
can see that.
has this kind of like it's a story about people of trying to get along, of opposite race, and then it's like story is about the white man trying to like. I mean, I guess it's not as bad as Green Book, where the white man's the one that's like saving the black man kind of story. It's really the opposite way,
Yeah,
really.
there's not like a white savior trope in it, but it is about
It
kind
it
of this.
it kind of simplifies a very complicated discussion,
Yeah, it's kind of
essentially.
the tropiness that you've seen in a lot of films like this are definitely in here.
Yeah.
There's an initial conflict, but then they come together because they're family and they're a lot closer
So
than they think.
they
You know what I
realize
mean?
that
It's got all that stuff in there.
people, because that black people are actually real people too. So
Yeah, and it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah, you should have known that this whole time. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Like
It's
for
like, what's
me
so
at this point,
difficult?
I'm like, yeah, of course they are. They're just
Yeah,
like, yeah, you know what I mean? Come on. I will say this: the character in this film that is incredible is the aunt character.
yeah, yeah. She's
She
great.
is the best part of this movie.
Yeah,
She steals every scene she's in. She lays things out just matter of factly. Like she cuts through all of the bullshit. She's amazing in this movie. I thought she
yeah,
was incredible, and she's kind of the bridge between these two characters. You know what I mean? She has the direct connection to the mother that neither of them have really got to know. So it's really interesting. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's my Paul Newman fan club T-shirt. If I could get it up. Yeah.
Who else? Anybody else out there has this shirt?
I mean, you could buy
Paul
it.
Newman
Buy
Fan
it.
Club,
Yeah. And it's blue because of
because of his
Paul
eyes.
Newman's eyes.
Yes,
If people pick up on
guess.
that, then they know Paul Newman.
Yeah.
That's why I got it because his eyes look so blue.
Let me ask you this:
Mm,
Are you so much of a fan of Paul Newman that you buy all the food products he also makes?
I do not, but if I did, if I could, I would.
You can.
True.
He's got dressing. He's
Oh
got
yeah, you got
pizzas.
everything.
He's got tons of products. Why ain't you
Yeah, they
buying
make
his?
dogs. They make Newman's own dog food. I think.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, so you're not buying all the Paul Newman stuff you can?
If I could, I would do that, because I've had Newman's own products before, and they've all tasted good. You know what I mean? That's not a
Just it's
bad
not up
product.
to you to buy that stuff.
Yeah, basically, I'm saying it's not up to me to buy all that stuff. But if I did, I wouldn't get everything, but like Newman's own popcorn, Newman's own frozen pizza is very good, stuff like that. Um, the salad dressing, which I think is kind of where it all got started.
I
I think
think
was salad
it was
dressing.
kind of the first thing.
Um, Yeah, I would definitely do that. I mean, I'm buying all of his movies. I might as well buy
I
everything.
was gonna say
Uh,
you got to collect all the products that he
I collect
just
all the products too.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's nice. Yeah, yeah. Joanne Woodward, from what I understand, I think she lives in Connecticut still because they had a home in Connecticut. That's one state over from me. Um, so I yeah they Yeah, Joan Woodward's amazing. What I learned about watching that documentary that was on HBO, or still is on HBO, is how big of a star Joanne Woodward was during her career. She was a
Yeah.
much bigger star than Paul Newman was when they met.
Yeah.
And then of course over time, I think Paul Newman, as his star grew and his career got on, it kind of got flipped on its side where he
Yeah.
became a big star and she was still known, but not as well as he did. She won an Oscar long before he did for The Three
Mhm.
Faces of Eve, which is a really good film. For those of you who haven't seen that, I'll definitely give that a watch. Um, and I think he directed her in, is it Rachel? Rachel, I think is the film. Um, yeah, it was also a really good film. I think that may have been like the first movie he'd ever directed was with her. Um, but yeah, I could go on this all day. So Stephen, you got me get me back on track.
Stop.
Get me back on
Stop. I want you to talk Ghoulies II.
Ghoulies II. Yeah, let's move off of Sandpiper. Let's move over to MVD. Let's talk about Ghoulies II. So Ghoulies, of course, I have it right here, but just by sheer coincidence, Stephen.
Nah, it's
So of
never a
course,
coincidence.
the first Ghoulies had a 4K UHD release from MVD. Our buddy Eric got this out. Ghoulies 2 had just a Blu-ray release from them, and then now they're releasing Ghoulies 2 in 4K. I watched them both when we covered I think we covered Ghoulies, and then we covered Ghoulies 2 as
Or there
well.
was somebody else put out like sets, didn't they? Didn't like Shout
I think there was a
Factory or something?
double feature from Shout Factory of
Yeah,
Ghoulies and Ghoulies 2 on
yeah,
Blu-ray, and we put that out. We put that.
yeah.
They
We
put
did
that
that.
out.
Yeah,
I wish we did. We don't have that type of power.
no,
But they put that out. Ghoulies 2 is a lot different than the first Ghoulies. I think Ghoulies 2, if I remember, Steven, is the one that takes place at like a carnival or like an amusement park. And these ghoulies are basically like living inside of this like not a haunted house scenario, but like this creepy attraction. And they start like terrorizing people that come into this attraction. It's a lot lighter and a lot more Gremlins-esque than I think the first film. Um, and yeah, the first Ghoulies is way more like supernatural and weird than I ever thought it would be. Yeah, the first Ghoulies is a young man and his girlfriend move into an old mansion where he becomes possessed by a desire to control ancient demons. And then the second one, like I said, it takes place at a it's the Ghoulies wreak havoc at an amusement park, disposing of those who mistake them for mere fairground attractions. A little bit of different vibe.
a little bit.
The first one, you got like supernatural possession things going on. Second one, it's like your worst fears of going to a weird amusement park come to life.
So it's American Horror Stories. You know,
Kind of yes. Kind of yes.
Season 2, season 3. They're gonna
Right.
change it up again.
I don't mind either of these movies. They're great fun. And this is definitely something I would want to pair along with Ghoulies. Since I've got the first one, my OCD as a collector would make me get the second one, regardless of quality. I am the person who owns Highlander 2 because I have Highlander 1. So
Yeah.
I know they. What's interesting is I can't remember if they pop out of a toilet in the second one, but I know that they pop out of a toilet in the first one.
Alright.
But they
Well,
use that same they use that same poster art for the
yeah, I was
second
gonna
film as
say,
well.
the poster's in there, so it's gotta happen in the second one. I mean, it's
I mean, also, yeah,
I feel like it's a
that's kind of
letdown
a worst fear as well, Steve. You're sitting on the
doing your
toilet,
business.
and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden this thing pops out and comes get you. I'd be freaking out too.
Is that I mean, is the reason they call them goalies because that's the noise you make when they pop up out of the toilet when you're using the goalies? Like, I don't know. But
I think I
I don't
talked
know.
about this when we talked about it before. I would thought Ghoulies was like a Gremlins ripoff, but no, it's kind of its own thing, which I think is kind of nice.
Kind of.
Hobgoblins is more of a Gremlins ripoff. Hobgoblins is awful. That is awful. That was a Mystery Science Theater episode where they watched the movie Hobgoblins. Awful. But yeah, so moving on from there, let's see. Do we want to go to
Radiance.
Radiance? Yes. Let me see if do I have Radiance up? Yes, I do. So Radiance had 1, 2, 3, 4 announcements.
6, 8. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4 announcements. Plus they had one from Raro Video as well, or Raro Video. Never know how to pronounce it. One here is a movie that maybe many people have in their collection. Mississippi Mermaid is a true faux film that's gotten, I think, 2 Blu-ray releases so far here in Region A land.
Yeah.
It had one from Twilight Time, Once Upon a Time, and it just had one from Kino. I think Kino released it too. And yeah, so it's definitely well traveled. It's a movie starring, I believe, the late Jean-Paul Belmondo. I'm gonna bring this up again, Steve, and I've never seen a funeral like that in my life. I've never seen anything like that in my life. Where a whole country basically mourns an actor. But Mississippi Mermaid, had a Blu-ray release from Twilight Time in 2015, a Blu-ray from Kino with a slipcover in 2023, and is getting this release as well from Radiance. And these are the Radiance July releases. Already into July, Stephen. They can't stop. They won't stop.
Why would they?
I have no idea why. So, in this tale of obsessive love, based on Cornell Woolrich's Waltz into Darkness, wealthy plantation owner Louis Mahe of Reunion Island falls madly in love with his mail-order bride, Julie. despite the fact that she is not quite what she seems and is in fact a lot worse. Even after becoming the victim of her deleterious influences and discovering that she is not the woman with whom he had been corresponding with, Louis allows himself to be drawn into a downward spiral of criminality and self-injurious lifestyle just to prove his undying devotion to this French femme fatale. The woman in question is portrayed by Catherine Deneuve, so I understand this man's ability to fall into her trap, I guess.
Yeah.
This is a movie I'd seen several years ago. I I think I want to say I saw it streaming either on uh, Filmstruck or I saw it streaming maybe on the Criterion channel. So it's been a few years since I've seen it, but I remember liking the film a lot. And this release from Radiance is of course going to be a good release. It's got an archival interview with Truffaut. It's got an archival interview with Jean Renoir, who discusses the work of Francois Truffaut. It's got an interview from French cinema expert Jeanette Vincendeux. It's got a commentary. Of course, it's got reversible sleeve art. Yeah, this is going to be a great release. So if you don't own this already, perhaps this is something you want to pick up. I'm kind of all in on Radiance, so I put this on the list because I want to get it. I don't own it yet, so that's another reason. So if anything, I'm a good candidate for it, I guess. So that's Mississippi Mermaid. Steven, I don't know if you've ever seen it. I don't know how
No.
much Truffaut you've actually have seen.
Truffaut's. I've seen Night and Day. I've seen, 400 Blows. Not a ton. Not a ton.
Mm,
So.
mm. So yeah, I've seen 400 Blows. I've seen Jules and Jim.
Oh, I've seen Jules and Jim. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's one.
I think I went and I saw all the because the character from Antoine Duaniel, the character from 400 Blows, he went on to make like a bunch of movies with him like throughout his life. It's kind of like remember Boyhood from Richard Linklater? It's kind of like that, but he just made separate movies of
Yeah.
points in this person's life. Like the second one was him as a teenager,
Oh,
the third one is him like in the army, and then the fourth one is him like as like an adult.
the Pooh trilogy.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it's like the Apu trilogy, but with Antoine Duaniel. So I would love to see that. There was a Blu-ray, there was a DVD box set. Sorry, a DVD box set put out by Criterion years ago. I would love for them to upgrade that to Blu-ray. Um, I don't know if they would ever do that, but that would be super sweet. Just to have that. Um, but yeah, the next thing here I know is a film I think both of us have now seen, and this is The Landlord. Uh,
Mhm.
this is the Hal Ashby film, right?
Yes, Hal
Yes.
Ashby. Who released it recently? Kino? Was it Kino?
It says it's a 2K transfer by Kino, so I have to assume that it's them. Let me see. It is Kino. I don't even have to look because I know it is, but I'm gonna look anyway because my OCD will not allow me to not look. Yeah, 2019. They
Yeah.
released it. A 2K transfer that was done by Kino is what they used here.
Yeah.
And this is an interesting movie, Steven.
Yeah.
I know you've seen it, so you can talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, I remember, it's he takes over this this housing for African Americans, and it's just this culture clash where he's this well dressed white man coming in trying to take over something that he has no business taking over really. It's this very much a movie about you know eh, learning about another culture. It's been a minute since I watched that, so I can't speak to it in any great length.
Yeah. So,
But
and the person in question who's doing this is portrayed by Beau Bridges.
Bridges, yeah,
Beau Bridges, who is the older brother of Jeff Bridges.
yeah.
And in this film, he plays a 29-year-old like trust fund kid, like from like a super wealthy, posh, like white as snow, driven snow family. Like there are dinner scenes in here where like this family is so far up their own rear end, you don't know where they start and where they end because that's how
Hmm.
rich they are. And it's an interesting film that's all about like like you said, even like a culture clash. And initially, he basically buys building, and he wants to like evict the tenants and like fix the place up and then like turn it into like his own place or whatever. But he ends up kind of getting involved with them on a personal level, fixing up the place and all
Yeah.
that stuff. He gets like involved, I think, romantically with the woman there as well, or kind of. It's more physical than anything.
Yeah.
And then he ends up getting involved with another African American woman who is an artist. But what is interesting is that she's what they refer to as white passing, where she is a lighter complexion skin. So she kind of talks about her being able to kind of drift into both worlds and both communities, and how like when she's with white people, like they don't even notice that she's black, but when she's in the black community they notice that she's black, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
she's kind of in both worlds,
Basically,
and I wish they kind of explored that a little bit more. Granted, it's 1970 when they're delving into this, so obviously race relations now, we delve into these things a little with a little more keen eye.
yeah.
um but I
Makes
thought
me
that was fascinating.
makes me think about that point where you're talking about her being kind of almost fluid between white and African American. She can play in both worlds. It makes me think about um
I know what you're talking about.
the what?
The movie Passing from a few
Nope,
years ago?
no.
No.
It's a specific point. The movie, the Dearies movie, um, the one with Lakeith Stanfield in it.
Oh, hold on.
What's the movie where he talks like a white person in the movie? Sorry for bothering you.
Yeah, that's not D. Reese, but
Or not Dearies. Son of a bitch.
yeah, Sorry to Bother You, which
Sorry.
is the Keith Stanfield, Tessa Thompson's in that film.
Yeah.
Boots Riley is the one who
Boots
directed
Riley.
that.
Okay, but just the idea of like, being able to, there are black people on the phone and then they pretend to be white, and it's like talking about
Mm,
how they're trying to play in both worlds and how there's an advantage
mm,
to being able to say, hey, they think I'm white, or
yeah.
like
So I'm non-threatening, I'm
yeah,
welcoming, they're gonna be at ease,
it's
so
exploring.
I can sell them a timeshare in Florida, you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
it's exploring that theme of like black
Mm.
people kind of making their way into the white world, and like, you
Well,
know
it also
yeah,
explores the idea of stereotypes, it explores
yeah,
the idea of race relations between, the black and white community and all of the complications that are involved in it. I thought of the movie Passing just because I think it was a criminally underrated movie
mhm.
that came out on Netflix a few years ago, um, in which Tessa Thompson was coincidentally also in.
It kind of went in passing. Is
Yeah,
it
yeah, it kinda passed.
kind of
The
passes
movie
by a little bit?
was directed by Rebecca Hall. It stars Tessa Thompson and Ruth Negga, and I thought it was really good film delving into that extensively. And it was interesting 'cause the movie was shot in black and white, so you got that contrast of both
Yeah,
worlds in the entire palette of the film as well. That's a movie that I wish got a Blu-ray release of some kind, but I don't think it ever did. Let's see. No, it did not.
and then you
Nowhere.
said that's a Netflix film.
Yes, it's a Netflix
Well,
film.
hopefully, maybe Criterion grabs it then.
Somebody,
Yeah,
somebody put that out. Um, but yeah, so yeah, and Landlord, like I said, starring Beau Bridges, it's Hal Ashby, so you've got the certain Hal Ashbyisms in there with the certain unique brand of humor, and of course, it's delving into certain not taboo cultural things, but just delving into certain things. Because for some reason, I'm thinking of Harold and Maude, which delved into so much stuff as well, and Landlord is kind of dealing with other stuff that's kind of off the beaten path, like we just said, race relations and all that kind of stuff. Beau Bridges kind of going from a completely different type of world to another world and kind of throwing himself into the deep end of the ocean without any type of protection, if you will. And yeah, it's interesting film. Hal Ashby's such a great director. This release, like I said, 2K transferred by Kino. It's got an interview with Starlee Grant. It's got an interview with Beau Bridges from 2019. That's fascinating to me. It's got an interview with producer Norman Jewison. That's interesting because Norman Jewison was kind of delving into movies like this as well at the time. Of course, Norman Jewison directed In the Heat of the Night, I mean, uh, yeah. So this is a really, really good release. If you don't have that Kino release, I would definitely recommend this one. Um, Next, we're talking about a film that I had never heard of before. This film is called Chow Pantin, but it's got an alternate name, and because the alternate name on Letterboxd, um, let me see if I can find it. But this is a movie, low key film, a film that plays things rather mysterious and rather um like there's something more going on than what's on screen.
Mhm.
And that's, I think, the main strength of that film. So the movie was also called So Long Stooge. Not the best title I've ever heard,
Yeah.
meh, but in Paris, Lambert works the night shift at a gas station, rarely speaking, living alone, drinking. One day comes a half Jewish, half Arab, small time crook in dire straits, pushing a moped named Ben Susan. He takes refuge at the station, pretending he needs a spark plug. The two men become friends. So it's a rather low key film, and when it starts out as these two random strangers meeting in the night. This guy, Lambert, he works at a gas station late at night. He has the night shift. And this guy basically comes in there pretending he needs a spark plug, but he's really actually like hiding from the police, or he's hiding from someone. He's a small time crook, like a drug dealer, like on the streets or whatever. You know what I mean? Like low key stuff. Um, and these two basically become friends. They're from different cultural backgrounds, but they just kind of become friends. Um, and then something happens within the film where I don't want to give it away, but something happens that kind of changes the plot of the film and the trajectory of the film. And Lambert, more about him is revealed. His past, his relationship with perhaps that drug type world, maybe a personal connection he has with it that we learn about kind of as the film reveals to us. You know what I mean? The film kind of organically reveals these things to us. Really good film. Like I said, low key film. Highly recommended if you can find it to watch. Um, good stuff. I don't want to get. I want to be completely cagey about what the film's actually about because I don't want to spoil anything. Um, but yeah, I really dug the film a lot. Really dug it. I
Awesome.
do recommend it. Once again, um, Radiance is doing some good work here. 4K restoration by Pathé, approved by a cinematographer. Yeah, there's a 55-minute feature on here called Once Upon a Time Tchao Pantin, a documentary on the film featuring interviews with writer-director Claude Berry, novelist Alan Page, stars Richard and Konanya, Mahmoud Zamouri, Agnes Sorel, cinematographer Bruno Newton, and others from 2003. 55 minutes long, and it says more to be confirmed. If you only have a 55-minute documentary feature, I think we're good. Yeah, I don't know if you
Pretty
need
good.
more than that. I don't know if you need more than that. Um, yeah, and when did this movie? I don't think it says when it came out. Yeah, no, these are. No, I wanted to get a date for this movie, but never mind. Um, yeah, it
Yeah.
came out in 1983.
I was gonna
I
say
just
you
want
don't
to
know.
put that in mind. Um, so yeah, there's that, and then the last film here is the film. Unfortunately, I won't be able to talk about because I didn't get to watch it, and it was the movie that I kind of wanted to watch the most. Ironically, I didn't get to see it.
It's got a
It's
cool name.
18 years in prison.
Yeah.
A little matter of factly, I would say, Stephen.
It's a little straightforward, but I mean, it's better than the Stooge one. Stooge.
Yes, it is. Yes. So, trying to survive the ruins of post-war Japan, Kawada by let's see, and Sukada run afoul of the military police after stealing valuable copper wire. Kawada is arrested and sent to prison, but Sukada uses their gains to start a yakuza gang, facing violent inmates and a cruel warden. Kawada vows to escape and stop his former partner. Um, Taekado directs this epic prison story with charismatic visual flair, while gangster turned actor Ando delivers a stunning performance charged with real life gravitas. And as an examination of the deep scars of wartime, this genre classic is also a clear precursor to Kinji Fukusaka's epic Battles Without Honor and Humanity series. After reading all that, Stephen, of course I wanted to watch this movie.
Of
And of course,
course.
you couldn't find this movie if you tried.
Son of a bitch.
Thank goodness for Radiance for putting this out because it sounds really good, like really good. Um, yeah, 18 years in prison. It's a matter of fact title, but it sounds so like there's so much more going on in there. Um, yeah, highly. Yeah, I couldn't. I put my faith in Fran's hands when it comes to these movies because I got a feeling he knows what he's doing. As we know by talking to him recently in the interview that we did.
Yeah,
So
he just seems to find so much that doesn't even have any releases at all. Like, I don't know how he's doing it.
yeah, not yet. Some things that just don't really see the light of day in physical media form in any way, and we're fortunate enough to kind of get these movies out in some way. Um, but yeah, so that's all from Radiance, and that was kind of it, pretty much for about the last 2 weeks until today. Until today, Stephen.
Criterion said no. Your
No.
show is not going to end at hour and 25 minutes.
No, it will not. We will make you sweat a little bit with what we got in store for you that you have to talk about. So I had a feeling we were going to get some Criterion today just because it's already the 15th of the month as of this recording. And usually about mid-month is when Criterion shows up. They show up at this time. And they showed up in a big bad way. Big bad way. So we've got 6 releases coming out this July, right in the heart of the Barnes& and Noble sale. So I am looking forward to that because I want all of these.
Well,
I want them all.
I can tell you what's going to happen is that this month is going to happen, and you're going to be strolling in, sliding into your Barnes and Noble, just
Nice.
like one of these releases.
Nice. I may. Oh man. Okay. I'm
You see what I
thinking. I'm
did, right?
thinking right because you know how I usually make the video for
Yeah,
the
for
YouTube
your
channel.
travels to the Barnes and Noble.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking of using something from one of these movies now. Now I'm thinking of
Ah,
doing it. I just got to track down the song and then, of course, see if I can use it. But anywho, but speaking of which, first up, straight up, Steven, here we go. Risky Business.
risky business. Now I can already hear the groans. Oh,
Groans. I don't want to hear any groans. None.
Tom Cruise.
No. I don't want to hear any groans.
That's just like it's like
Mm.
another Breakfast Club in the collection. Oh,
This
that's
this is,
come on,
I
guys.
believe, the first film with Tom Cruise in the Criterion
I
Collection.
believe so.
I don't
Yeah.
think anything else is in there.
I don't think
from
cocktails in there.
no,
I don't think Color of Money's in there yet.
no.
Which I mean,
I
wouldn't
would,
surprise me, wouldn't it?
oh my god, if Color of Money got a Criterion release, I think I'd cry. I think I'd openly
Oh,
weep.
God, come on, man.
It desperately needs a re-release. The Disney Buena Vista Blu-ray that they put out many moons ago is not great. Not great at
Yeah.
all. Yeah, I agree with people down there.
This is Tony, by the way, Tony Meaches.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Risky Business. I'm gonna say this. I love that movie.
It's a good movie. Yeah.
I think it's really good. Not only because it's the kind of not star making, but yeah, I would say kind of coming out party for Tom Cruise as a young actor. Like people better watch out for this guy. He's got something here. But the themes that are in this movie as a coming of age film, I think are rather timeless.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen the movie Risky Business, they say here is a sly piece of pop culture, a pop subversion. This irresistible satire of Reagan era materialism features Tom Cruise in his Star is Born breakthrough as a Chicago suburban prepster whose college bound life spirals out of control when his parents go out of town for a week and an enterprising call girl, Rebecca De Mornay, invites him to walk on the wild side. And what a wild side he does walk on. And he ends up getting himself into so much trouble, so much trouble in this movie. And it kind of builds deeper and deeper until he's got to figure out a way to how to get out of this problem. And he decides, Stephen, I'm going to open up essentially a brothel outside through his house. You know what I mean?
Why not?
Why not? Why not?
It's the 80s.
Yeah, we can do it. We can do it.
You know,
Yeah,
that's my favorite thing that happens in movies. One of my favorite things is that when it's like they like to reference the time period they're in. So they're like, guys, it's the 90s. It's the 90s now. I mean, we do stuff like that. And I'm like,
yeah.
hey, you're so hilarious. Like your the time to be alive when you were was the greatest time to be alive, and things are happening.
Yeah.
It's the 2000s now.
Well, it's
We
kind
did
of like
like,
now because we've had a lot of movies that have movies and TV shows that are set back in like the 80s, set back in the 90s, and they'll try so hard to create the aesthetic of the time or create the world of the time. And those of us who lived in that time know that it's kind of BS. Like
yeah,
I hate to break this to you, but the 80s weren't like neon pink and purple and like synthesizers and stuff like that. Certainly they were there at the time, but it's not all what Stranger Things made it out to look like. It's
yeah,
not they don't all look like Nicholas Winding Refn movies. They didn't look like
no,
Nicholas Winding Refn movies back in the day. The 90s were the same thing. They didn't people didn't all dress like they were going to a grunge concert.
no.
Many of us did, but
That
not
was
all, not
just the
everyone.
popular trends.
Really, it
Yeah,
was.
yeah, yeah, but not necessarily the every person look. Yeah.
Right, right. So
Apparently, Horror Honey had leg warmers. Um,
Mm, classic,
yeah,
classic vintage look there. I remember, I mean, in the night, was it a 90s thing where the women had the shoulder pads like kind of sewn into the clothes? I remember my mother had
maybe.
that in the early 90s. Yeah, it was a time. It was a time. But Risky Business is early 80s aesthetic, early 80s look, and it's a movie that I've gone back to so many times um for its coming of age themes. The movie has Tom Cruise, Rebecca De Mornay, Curtis Armstrong, Bronson Pinchot, Joe Pantoliano is kind of the main bad guy in this movie who um basically steals all of Tom Cruise's stuff or steals there's of course the Fabergé egg in the movie. Um yeah,
I
I
mean,
love this movie, man.
between his character in this movie, Baby's Day Out, and The Matrix, he's just the worst bad guy ever.
Yeah, he's always an asshole. Like, of course, he's in Bound as well,
Yeah,
which we talked about
yeah,
last month.
bad. He's
When,
pretty bad in that too.
yeah, he's gonna be in Bound, which is getting a June release. Um, yeah, I'm just, yeah. It's so basically Tom Cruise has got to. He runs this business out of his house, but he's stepping out of his shell as this like preppy, suburban, white collar kid who's like on his way to a big Ivy League school, and he's making and he's trying to kind of you know do something worthwhile with his life. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There's a lot of those themes in these films that I kind of gravitate towards. I'm thinking of even in something like Dazed and Confused. I'm thinking of like those kids kind of being stuck, but also trying to break out of the stuff, like kind of break out of the cycle and the expectations that the generations put upon him. You know what I mean? Like he's supposed to, go to the good school, get good grades, be straight laced because that's what society tells him he has to be. That's the rubric, that's the structure he's grown up in. But
Yeah.
there's this whole other world outside of that world that he gets himself into now.
Well,
And I just love that exploration of
e
that.
even a movie that's very, I feel like, close to literally in the time that it came out, Ferris Bueller.
Very much.
It takes a different approach, but it's got a similar
For
theme
for
where,
yeah,
breaking out of the normality of high
but
school and,
what
you
is
know
interesting for me is that Ferris Bueller is almost the foil or the opposite or the mirror version of
Yeah,
Risky Business because
yeah.
Ferris is already, like, awoke. He's already,
He's woken up to,
he's
yeah,
woken up to this world outside of his world. He sees the bullshit within his world, and he's already outside of it. He already is, where kind of Tom Cruise
but
gets to at the
but
end of
his
Risky Business.
his best friend isn't. So,
But his best friend is, and it's kind of about
yeah,
him trying to,
yeah,
help Cameron break out of that
yeah.
world. You know what I mean? And so that's very interesting. But yeah, I always loved Risky Business. I think I have it on DVD, had it on Blu-ray.
Hey, I got a Blu-ray of it, but I think I'd
Yeah,
probably
this is a four. Speaking of which, this is a 4K release of this.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
movie's never been on 4K before.
No.
It's never been. Yeah, it's a 4K digital restoration of the director's cut and original theatrical cut. I wasn't aware there were two cuts of this movie. To be honest with
I
you,
didn't
right now.
either.
There's an audio commentary for the theatrical featuring the director Brickman, Avnet, and actor Tom Cruise. That must be like an archival documentary.
Yeah, probably.
I don't feel like Tom Cruise is doing commentaries right now. I feel like he's too busy
I don't know, man.
being too Mission Impossible.
He's a busy man. Maybe he's like cutting him between his stunt, the next airplane, thing.
Jump.
Next time he does it. No, I mean I know he flies airplanes too. Yeah, he does that shit.
He does everything apparently.
He's just fucking crazy. Yeah.
So there's a new conversation between editor Richard Chu and film historian Bobby Osteen. The dream is always the same. The story of Risky Business, a program featuring interviews with Brickman, Avnet, cast members, and others. Screen test with Tom Cruise and Rebecca De Mornay. Rebecca De Mornay is fascinating in this film because she's kind of his first gateway into a different world. Her introduction in this movie is so over the top, yet so brilliant. It's a teenager's dream come to life. I don't know if you remember the scene, Steven. The doors open and she walks in and they got all these leaves like blowing in the wind and she looks like all majestic. She looks like a dream come to life. And to him she is until the dream, till the dream kind of ends. And then that's when kind of the shit hits the fan afterwards. But of course there's the sequence where they have at the end of the movie where they're on the train and the music's playing. There's a dreamlike quality to this movie at times, man. The movies, Steven.
Well,
I'm waxing poetically now.
Yeah, I had a hard time with this Risky Business, getting a little bit too attached to her, because the thing is, I think I saw the movie she did, The Hand That Rocked the Cradle, before I saw Risky Business, and she's scary in that movie. So
gotcha. I've always liked Rebecca De Mornay. Steven, do you remember kind of the quasi remake they did for our generation of this movie?
Of Risky Business?
Yes. Do you remember the movie The Girl Next Door?
The Jennifer Lopez movie?
No.
That's The Boy Next Door.
Yeah, that's The Boy Next Door. The Girl Next Door is the movie starring Emile Hirsch. It's Emile Hirsch and the Rebecca De Mornay character is Alicia Cuthbert. Timothy Oliphant is the Joe Pantoliano character.
I think I know. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, Paul Dano is his friend. Young Paul Dano. This movie came out in 2004. So it's kind of, and it's Risky Business, but it's with it's set within our generation. Well, if you were in high school in 2004, like I was, and it's not the kind of sex working industry. It's the I guess you could say the adult film industry. It kind of substitutes for in there. Joe Pantoliano is kind of like, not Joe Pantoliano, Timothy Oliphant's kind of, I think he's a director or producer of films, and he and the Emile Hirsch character get in a bit of a conflict, and then Emile Hirsch just starts making like adult movies and whatnot. That movie's, I always had a soft spot for that movie because it was my era's.
Horror Honey
did not like that movie. Understandable. It's a little bit of nostalgia for me. In 2004, I was 17, so I was the Tom Cruise age in Risky
Well, I was gonna say you could say I had a crush on what's her name, because she was in 24.
She was the daughter in 24.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, she's nice looking. Otherwise, I don't want to. The movie, I didn't care for.
I think it's a movie like I said that I had a soft spot for, yet I've never owned it. Ironically,
yeah. So it's very soft spot.
Yeah,
for
clearly,
it
just lives in my mind rent free. I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always put those pieces together. How that's a remake of Risky Business, essentially. Yeah. But moving on from Risky Business, because we could talk about that all day. Farewell, My Concubine. This is a movie I actually have not seen, but I've been aware of this movie for a long time. This was a big festival hit back in '93. It's a movie that I've always wanted to watch, but it's always just been stuck in DVD land, if I remember. I think this is the first time um, that this is getting a Blu-ray release at all. And if I remember correctly, it's a long film. So Farewell My Concubine. Okay, so it's gotten a Blu-ray release in the UK in 2016. It's gotten a Blu-ray release throughout every other goddamn country except for the United States. Pretty much, it's
Do it
gotten
now.
one everywhere. Jeez. Um, but we got one here now. We got a. This is also coming out in 4K. Yeah, this movie's 171 minutes long. That's why I remember it being
A
so
little bit
long.
long. A little long.
Yes.
It's under
Um,
3 hours, right?
yes, it is about 9 minutes under 3 hours.
It's-
Farewell, My Concubine is a movie with two parallel, intertwined stories. It is a story of two performers in the Beijing opera stage brothers and the woman who comes between them. At the same time, it attempts to do no less than squeeze the entire political history of China in the 20th century into a 3-hour time frame. Why did that seem like a very backhanded description of the movie? But
I
anyway,
don't know.
um, yeah, so and I remember this being like a big festival darling hit back in '93. Um, yeah, Farewell My Concubine. I've always wanted to see this. I think this won some type of award back then. That's why. Um, have you ever heard of this movie, Steven?
Never heard of it, man. You're bringing me up to date. I've never heard of it. So I always trust your
Yeah, it
judgments.
was nominated for 2 Oscars at the time. Um, my guess is best cinematography and best foreign language film. That makes a lot of sense. I wanted at the Cannes Film Festival, I did it. This really doesn't tell me whether it won the Palme d'Or or whether it was just nominated for the Palme d'Or. IMDb, you let me down again with your crappy design. I want to
It
see.
says it won.
Oh, okay.
First Chinese film to win the Palme d'Or in epic filmmaking, the highest order.
Okay.
So
That's also why I want to see if it won something at like a Sundance Film Festival or something like that, but this is really not helping me at all. So yeah, Farewell My Concubine, a well known film. But like I said, I've never seen it, and it's getting a 4K and a Blu-ray release. So I do want to check it out. A little lean on the special features, but I'm just kind of happy that the movie is probably going to look quite stunning.
oh yeah.
But moving on from there is Black God, White Devil. Now, this movie I think recently had a Blu-ray release from somebody else.
It was one of the partner labels of Radiance.
That's why,
That's it.
which is
I can't remember which one, but it's not Raro. I know that. It's one of their other ones, I believe.
let's see, Mawu Films.
That's it. That's it.
Yes. Yeah, Mawu Films, and this was the one fictionalized account of the adventures of hired gunman Antonio das Mortes, set against the real-life last days of rural banditism. The movie follows Antonio as he witnesses the descent of common rural worker Manuel into a crime, joining the gang of Antonio's sworn enemy, Corsico the Blonde Devil, and the Hydra Bone Massacre. I remember the movie very vaguely because I think this came out last year, Steven. If I
Yeah, I
want,
was gonna say. I remember.
Hmm.
I think I recall you saying you really liked this movie.
Yeah, it's shot in black and white, very artsy. Yeah, it came out December 2023, so very recent, very recent. Um, and yeah, it's so I probably talked about it at great length at the time.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any real reason for me to delve back into it now. Kind of surprised that it's getting a Criterion release so soon.
You shouldn't be. All right,
Yeah,
moving on.
move on. Yeah, move on. Yeah.
Another recent film, Perfect Days from a long time. Bless you, sir. Bless
Yeah.
you, sir. Long time. Criterion. Bless you again.
Mm.
Jeez, you must be allergic to Perfect Days.
I shouldn't because this movie is damn near perfect.
I hate myself because I had an opportunity to watch this movie. Our friend Dan Scapalin sent me a bunch of movies to watch because he's a critic and he gave me some screeners. And this was in the screeners, man. I never got a chance to watch it.
It's worth watching
Yeah.
if you watch it via disc or not via disc, because it's such a movie, man.
Vin
It's
Wenders is just a fucking
yeah,
amazing director.
it's just it's a movie that's hard to describe why it's so good without you actually seeing it.
Yeah.
And that's the power of cinema. where like you have to experience this cinema with a capital C
Yeah.
to really appreciate what's going on in it. Yeah, this is one of the best movies that from last year. So Hirayama seems utterly content with his simple life as a cleaner of toilets in Tokyo. Outside of his very structured everyday routine, he enjoys his passion for music and for books, and he loves trees and takes photos of them. A series of unexpected encounters gradually reveal more of his past. That doesn't even do this film justice. I can't, you know. So Hirayama is this man who cleans public toilets for a living. That's what he does. But every day he lives such a structured life. Like he's got everything planned out pretty much to a T. You know, he wakes up at the same time. He, you know, gets ready the same way. He goes to work. He cleans everything the same way. Perfectly perfectly detailed in every way. You know what I mean? And even on his days off, he has a routine. He goes and eats at a certain place, a certain restaurant. He goes to a certain bar and he drinks a certain drink. Everything is just completely planned out for him, and because he's reached that point in his life where that's he can do that basically. You know, he's an older gentleman. He's lived an entire life already, and this is kind of what he does. And then things happen that kind of jumble up his everyday life, that jumble up his plans. Um, certain things happen with his young coworker that works with him is the complete opposite of him. The guy's late. He's late for everything. You know what I mean? He's got a tumultuous relationship with a young woman. He's got things going on. You know what I mean? Um, and then also one day, like his niece comes to stay with him unexpectedly, a niece who he hasn't seen in many years, and he's estranged from his sister, and we learn why he's estranged from his sister and all of these things and whatnot. The film is so brilliantly simply told, just so brilliantly simply told that you get lost in its simplicity that you don't even realize what the movie's delving into. You don't even realize
Well,
the macrocosms that are going on in this film.
well, it
It's a brand
sounds
making you don't see.
yeah, it
You know?
sounds like the way you're describing it that it points out that on the surface how simple because this guy's life is so structured and it seems so simple that as you learn more about him, you realize that the facade of how simple his life is really just way more complicated
Yeah.
than it really looks at the surface. Because what it is it's a way for him to probably cope with whatever has gone on in his life.
Kind of, yes. And the film doesn't even like get into big revelations and stuff
Sure.
like that. Like it's not like you get a third act reveal like, oh, it's all coming together now.
Ah, God, he's been asleep the whole time in a coma.
Yeah.
Ah, no.
There's no big like third act Hitchcockian twist that makes it all come together.
Yeah.
It's just so simply matter of factly told. And
Yeah.
there's a beauty to the movie that is just you don't see this type of cinematic um filmmaking really ever nowadays. It feels like such a lost art of simplicity filmmaking that
Mm.
just echoes in giant waves.
It's
It's
the way
it's Wim Wenders, man. Nothing like a good Wim Wenders
the way
film.
you're talking about. I mean, like I'd say one of our favorite films of the last decade is very simple,
Yeah,
and that's um,
Columbus.
you knew exactly. See,
Yeah, I knew exactly.
this is why we're friends.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Kogonada. Yeah,
Kogonada's Columbus is very simply told, but very much has that kind of
it
you know
reminded me a lot of that, but obviously
awesome.
set in a different place, different world,
Yeah,
and a much longer film, if I remember correctly. This is a let's see, it's a movie that's 124 minutes, so 2
yeah,
hours, and that's
yeah.
not terribly long. There's a new interview with Wim Wenders on here. There's an interview with actor Koji Yakusho. Somebody Comes into the Light from 2023, a short film by Wim Wenders featuring new introduction by the director. Interview with producer Koji Yanai, founder of the Tokyo Toilet Project. One thing I did learn by watching this movie and just kind of reading up when people were talking about it, apparently, public restrooms in Japan are incredibly clean, like incredibly clean. And you see in this film how much, like, I wouldn't say pride he takes in his work, but just thoroughness of something as some would perceive to be as lowbrow as cleaning public restrooms. Because when you think of that, you think of like, oh, that's something that's a low level of work. You know what I mean? As terrible as people think like that, that's what people think. That's the perception of it. And this film really it doesn't really delve into that too much, but does mention it, how it is kind of perceived as kind of a lower form of work, but not so much to this guy. It's something that he takes pride in, something that he's very good at. And you see him do the little touches of what he does in his work. Um, and you see some of the public restrooms in Japan. You're like, these put ours to shame, Stephen. These put ours to shame.
Yeah,
Like
well,
they're kind of like, but they're kind of like futuristic restrooms here. Like they look so much nicer. But
I
it
mean,
just shows the cultural difference between here and Japan, essentially.
yeah, I was gonna say it's about priorities and what government and in
Yeah,
other
like
countries look at as priorities,
what
and
public funds will go to
yeah,
there versus here, I guess.
yeah,
But yeah, it's a masterwork of a film. I think I
well,
couldn't recommend this film higher enough. Granted, my bias is that I think Wim Wenders is one of the best
it's
ever.
one of the
I
best.
think Paris, Texas. I think about that movie all the time. I think about Wings
Well,
of
Wings of
Desire
Desire is
is a
just
movie I still
I think about that movie
can't
a
get
lot.
over the impact that that film had. Just the Talk about a movie that hits you like a
Yeah,
hammer. Just
yeah.
a stunning film. I still need to get that 4K upgrade that Criterion did. I was thinking about that often, um, because I have the Blu I think it was one of the first Criterion Blu-rays I ever bought, like circa 2010 or 11. Um, so I've gotta upgrade that. I think they have the rights to kind of all of his stuff.
I think so.
So,
And
hopefully
then Curzon put out that big set.
Curzon did put out that big set, but I wanna say here in Region A land, I think they've got everything because he's got that Road trilogy set that I've got,
Mhm.
um, uh,
American
American
Friend,
Friend. Yeah, American
the
Friend, which is very good with Dennis Hopper.
the dance movie,
Oh, Pina, yeah, which he
yeah,
shot in 3D.
yeah,
That movie is just series of dance sequences in 3D, and it's, like, mesmerizing.
yeah.
Mesmerizing. I would love to see a 4K release of Paris, Texas, if that's on the horizon sometime. That would be beautiful. That would be beautiful. So enough with Perfect Days, because I could go on about that Perfect movie for the longest time. But another movie that I think is damn near perfect. It's also getting a 4K release. Is Le Samurai, the Jean-Pierre Melville film. Um, yeah, talk about this is a quintessential neo noir from France, circa 1967, starring Alain Delon. Um, this has been available on DVD from them. This has been available on Blu-ray from them. This is a this is I think it's a masterwork, another masterwork, I think. Um, I know people probably had it in many forms over the years. Um, Steven, you're a fan of this movie, are you not?
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's damn, I mean, the style of this movie is almost, like, been ripped off so many times. I mean,
Yeah, the whole aesthetic of this cool
guy with the hat
assassin
and
guy with the
trench
hat and the
coat.
trench coat,
Yeah,
and
I
he's
mean
just, like, kinda laid back. He's got, like, a pet
I'm
bird
shi
in this.
I'm sure Ryan Gosling has seen this movie.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure as well. I wouldn't be surprised someday soon if we get a Ryan Gosling Criterion Closet video and he pulls out this movie,
Yeah. Wait,
because that's the vibe I'm getting.
yeah.
Kind of he's kind of a modern day Alain Delon. I don't
Yeah.
know if that's sacrilege to say, but
What?
they are in similar roles.
Yeah.
I think of him in the driver in Drive as the driver in Drive. I think of him in a lot of roles like that. Even the one they've got coming up, um, uh,
Fall Guy.
Fall Guy. Um, I get that feeling from him a lot. It's yeah, this movie is so interesting and so like I said, quintessential French neo noir from the '60s. Jean-Pierre Melville is one of the great French directors ever. He's part of that whole French New Wave, but he was also there before the French New Wave. He was making movies in the '40s, in the late '40s. I was just watching a bunch of his short films that it's on the Criterion channel, that he did in like the late '40s.
Yeah.
All interesting, completely different than the work he did later on, but still you see kind of early, Melville stuff. But yeah, The Samurai, I'm pretty sure everybody knows about that movie by now. If you don't, It's good. It's really good, but
It's
don't
good.
go into it expecting a lot. It's a very patient,
It,
slow film.
I
This
mean,
isn't this isn't Jason Bourne. He's not
I
Jason
mean,
Bourne,
a
you know?
recent film, Fincher's recent film, that the killer or
Mhm.
killer or whatever it's called, is very much inspired by this movie as well. Very methodical, slow paced. You're kind of in the point of view of the killer in this case, uh, you're in Alain Delon's kind of shoes, following him around as he's doing this, you know, this job. So
Yeah,
it's
I'm trying to think of there was that George Clooney film, The American.
yeah,
Remember that film from
yeah, American,
2010?
yeah, yeah,
Kinda reminds me a bit of this film as well in the terms of tone and whatnot, and what to expect from a movie like this.
yeah.
Um, yeah, The Samurai is extraordinary work, I think. And then moving on from there, we've got a Sam Peckinpah film, the second Sam Peckinpah film to make it into the Criterion Collection. And this is a movie I haven't seen, but I've had the DVD in my collection for like a decade. So it would make a good for unwatched pile, but I gotta wait till I get this Blu-ray now,
Man,
or else I'll just feel weird about it. Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. Um, Steven, have you heard of this film before?
I've heard of it, but
Yes.
it's one of them things where it's another example of not necessarily, of course, this is a different title, but like there's so many stories about Billy the Kid. There's so many movies that surround these characters, these larger than life characters. But I haven't seen this one. Peckinpah's a director that I'm like, I've seen a pretty good amount of his stuff, but this one's one that's gone under the radar for me. So, um, yeah, I love westerns. Peckinpah westerns are always going to be a little bit more edgy and violent, and yeah, I'll be excited to check this one out.
Yeah. For some reason, I always thought that this was part of his '60s work, and it's not. It came out in 1973.
Yeah.
It stars James Coburn, Chris Christopherson. I think Jason Robards is in the film as well. Katie Gerardo, who I've seen before. I think she was in. What was Katie Gerardo in? Was she in a High Noon? I think she was in. She was in High Noon. She was in High Noon. Um, uh, but what I also remember about this movie is I think Bob Dylan did the music for it.
Mm.
I've gotta look that up right
Yeah,
now, or else I'm gonna lose my
soundtrack
mind.
by Bob Dylan. Yeah.
Yes, that's why. For some reason, I also thought he wasn't. He is in the movie as well. Yes, I was right on that. He's in the movie as well, and yeah, this is a movie I've been wanting to watch, like I said, for a long time. This movie has not gotten a Blu-ray release anywhere until now. This is going to be a worldwide first.
It's also got two cuts of the film in here.
Yes,
The original.
famously, Sam Peckinpah, a lot of his movies have 2 cuts because they didn't let him make the movies he wanted to make, essentially. It's got the original theatrical cut, and I think it has um the Sam Peckinpah's final preview cut, yeah, is on here as well, but that's only getting a new 2K digital master. Uh, the 4K digital restoration is for his theatrical cut. You see this with, like I said, you see this with a lot of Sam Peckinpah films. So, um, yeah, so there's Dylan and Durango, a new interview with author Clinton Highland about the film's soundtrack. Passion and Poetry, Peckinpah's Last Western, a new documentary by Mike Siegel about the making of the film. Archival interview with actor James Coburn. Audio commentary with Sador Spottiswoode and critic Michael Sragow. That's a
Oh,
cool name.
I was gonna say that name again?
Sragow.
I love that.
Yeah, it's Sragow.
Mm,
Sragow.
I love
Cool,
it.
cool, cool. Yeah, this is a 4-disc set, and this is
Yeah.
also coming out in 4K, like we said. The Blu-ray will be 2 discs. Yeah, because
2
it'll have
Blu-rays, 2 4Ks.
yeah, 2 Blu yeah, like, as exactly as you just said. So yeah, Sam Peckinpah's cycle of genre-redefining westerns came to a close with his blood-and-dust-caked elegy for the American West, which marries his renegade style with a fatalistic sense of finality. That's a lot of Fs in there.
Mhm.
A newly minted lawman, Pat Garrett, stalks the outlaw Billy the Kid. Across the plains, their old friendship is twisted into a rivalry, and mythic ideals of freedom come up against an emerging ruling class order, all to the stains of a haunting, all to the strains of a haunting soundtrack by Bob Dylan, who also appears as in the film as well. Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid presented here for the first time in 3 separate versions. Hey now, stands as perhaps the Maverick auteur's richest and most mature work, a world-weary ballad that bears the solemn weight of history passing into legend. I always wonder who writes these descriptions for Criterion. They're like movie poets basically at this point. Um, yeah. So I'm this is a day one buy. Like
Okay.
I'm hoping my store gets this so I can buy it during the sale because this is coming out July 2nd. So right before
Right to
Independence
begin.
Day.
Right to
Uh,
get it. Yeah.
usually usually the sale starts end of June, first week of July, usually. That seems to be the case last few years. So this will be a high priority buy for me. Um, yeah, Sam Peckinpah, I've been talking a lot about him recently. Just a great, unique director, kind of ahead of his time. Fought a lot of demons off outside of cinema that we've talked about many times, but his films within cinema are truly some unique work. The Wild Bunch, Straw Dogs, The Getaway, um, yeah, just
No,
great,
it's the
great
one that
stuff.
got released like 1,000 times. Didn't he do the head of Alfredo
Oh yeah,
Garcia?
Bring Me the Head of Alfredo
Alfredo
Garcia.
Garcia. Yeah,
That got a
he's
few releases.
yeah.
The Cincinnati Kid, that was directed by Sam Peckinpah? Oh, this this is interesting. So the Cincinnati Kid, which I believe was directed by Norman Jewison, was initially directed by Sam Peckinpah, but he was fired after 1 week of shooting, so he
Mm.
gets an uncredited director's credit on that film. Uh, just to show you, Sam Peckinpah, kind of the way he was. The movie Ride the High Country, which has a Blu-ray release from Warner Archive, is a great film. Highly recommend that film. Um, really good stuff.
Yeah.
This just reminds me I gotta get more Sam Peckinpah.
Yeah,
I
and
would love a re-release of The Wild Bunch by
yeah, and
somebody.
our friend Tony, who does in imprint cast, they're gonna be doing a whole episode on Peck and Paul, so watch out for that.
Nice,
They'll be coming at
nice.
some point soon. So
Yeah, the Wild Bunch Blu-ray that's currently available here came out in 2007. That's
that's
obscene,
ridiculous. That's
obscene.
ridiculous.
That's ridiculous. Come on, Warner Brothers, get it together. Get it together now. Just license it out to somebody. Yeah,
Yeah, really.
somebody would love to have that movie to redo. If anything, it came out in 1969. So, Steven, could you do that math for me? Because I know it ends in a 5. How many years ago was that? Was that a 55-year anniversary of that movie?
Uh, sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
55.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
so this year would be 55. Yeah.
Yeah, so it would have been a perfect release. I'm surprised they didn't do anything with it last year for the 100th anniversary of Warner Brothers. Instead, they decided to re-release a bunch of movies that they've re-released already.
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
oh,
mm,
oh, that bemoans me. Because I look at some of the 100th anniversary releases from last year, and I'm like, yeah, there some of them are very, very nice. But then, of course, they come up short in a bunch of different ways. Looking at I was looking at Rebel Without a Cause, the 4K, where they just give you the 4K disc and they don't give you the Blu-ray to go along with it. So it's like I gotta keep my old Blu-ray now because I I kind of want both worlds, the best of both worlds, Steven. So
you just gotta
it's
have
little stuff like that that gets me.
you just gotta have everything, don't you, Andrew?
Yeah, because you're gonna have to get me off of this path. Have you noticed recently, Steven, that Arrow releases are just giving us the 4K and not the Blu-rays that go of the movies as well?
It's
Or
been
did I just
happening.
notice that?
It's been happening. Yeah.
Because it happens with I'm just dropping stuff now. It happened with Carrie,
Yeah.
and it also happened with the Conan movies that they just
Hmm.
put out. Um,
Yeah, it's
I
also
don't know if that's a rights thing or if that's
maybe
just them changing
or
things
it's
up.
cutting the costs. They're
Hmm.
already putting the money into a 4K. Maybe they just and the good thing about it is it's all on one disc now, and 4Ks are region free.
Oh yeah, very true. Very
So
true.
so
I
y-
just
so
you know me, I just like to have more for my money. If I'm gonna
yeah,
drop
but you're
30 to
you're getting
$40 on
a
something,
4K disc, so you're getting everything you
yeah.
need. So
Very true. Yeah, of course, yeah, once I have the 4K, I'm gonna watch the movie in 4K, but I just noticed that I thought it was maybe like a rights thing with them, like they only bought the rights for the 4K, but then I'm like, they've had the rights for the Carrie Blu-ray for years. They could have just
well,
They could have just packaged the carry Blu-ray that they've already been putting out all this time with this.
Well,
Like,
let me. Well,
as a second
producing
disc.
discs cost money, so you're
Yeah,
asking
that's
them to
another
do.
thing too. I'm
But
sure it's a
didn't
cost.
they release Conan in Blu-ray editions?
Yeah.
No, that's if you wanted a Blu-ray, you could get a Bluray, but if you
But it
wanted a
doesn't come with
4K,
it. But it doesn't have the
but you don't
4K.
need to have both. You get in the 4K.
Steven, no, don't. I need to
Stop
have it
act-
all. I need it all.
This is my party and I cry if I want to. Get
Nice.
everything you want. Yeah.
Problem child all over
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
What
That's
a
what it sounds
90s
like.
gem.
I just see you running around like, I want it all.
I want it all and I want it now.
Yeah,
That's a line from a Doors song, actually.
you sound like the
Would make
girl. You
sense.
said name from
Channeling Jim
Willy
Morrison.
Wonka. You say,
Oh,
I want
yeah.
it now.
There's also that one too. That's the less cool version of that.
Sorry, Dan. We already talked about it. You're way behind.
We
that was the
did.
first thing we talked about.
It is the first thing we talked about. We gushed about how great that movie is and
Yeah.
coming out party for Tom
Great
Cruise.
month.
It was a great month. I thought June was like great, and I think they kind of eclipsed June with this month. Really,
If I'm being honest, Criterion's usually always pretty good. It's just they take it up a level on the middle of summer with the sale coming. So
I did not see Risky Business getting a Criterion release ever. That's not been in my mindset. Because the Blu-ray, okay, it's a Warner Brothers Blu-ray. That's very interesting. That's also that kind of gets me a little bit too, because Warner Brothers typically, at least now, for the most part, I'm just speaking out of nowhere. They don't license out a lot of stuff to boutique labels. I know they just did Mean Streets with Second Sight. I know that, but something like Risky Business, like a Tom Cruise film, you'd think they would want to do that themselves.
I don't know, man.
Because Tom Cruise is a big star and making Mission Impossible still Top Gun.
You see them do it sometimes, even when they release it out to somebody else. Then like months later, then they put their own edition out.
Paramount does that a lot.
Yeah,
Sony does that a lot. That's kind of like, I'm just thinking off the top of my head. Scream Factory put out Event Horizon, like a special edition, and then on Blu-ray, and then several years later, most recently, I think Paramount, was it Sony or Paramount that owns that? Either way, whatever was the parent company, put that movie out in 4K, but with none of the special features from that special edition. None of them. Kind of a bare bones release. And it's like, yeah, I would like the movie with better picture quality, but also as a collector, all those special features were kind of key, kind of important to me. As well. I understand kind of licensing rights when it comes to special features and all those things. We talk about that stuff all the time, but it's kind of frustrating when that happens. A little bit to me. I think it kind of connects with what I was just saying with not getting the accompanying Blu-ray disc with the 4K releases. But that's just me being OCD and picky about the way I like my collection to be.
You just want everything. We've already established that.
I mean, we're living in spoiled times. Might as well spoil me.
Yeah, you just need to calm down. Don't be jealous of my singing voice, Dan. And yes, we much appreciate. We're glad if we can make anybody's night on a Monday, especially a Monday night at the beginning of the week. We're glad we can do that. Thank you, honey, for enjoying my singing voice. I do the best I can. But that will ring us out for the night. That is it for Chasing Labels. Spy number 137. We thank everybody that was with us live tonight. As always, we always love having people watching us live. But if you don't get a chance to watch us live, hey, it's of course going to replay here on YouTube, or you can get the audio version on our Apple Podcast or Spotify. And of course, we got other shows on our YouTube and our podcasting. We have the Unwatched Pile, which will have a new episode next week, where we have Mr. Dan Skip Allen, who's in the chat right now. Will be our guest next week to talk, new movies in our collection that we haven't watched yet. We always got to do that. We got to make sure we're watching the shit we buy. We're going to do that again next Monday. So be prepared for that. Don't know what I'm going to watch yet. I got to look through the collection.
To be honest, neither do I.
You never do. You always wait till the last couple of days. And
I do indeed. I'm just looking. I'm actually looking around right now when I probably shouldn't be. Try to think
Stop
of something
looking around.
You're
messing up the camera. The camera keeps going in and out of focus.
Oh, you know what it is? I have my autofocus on. I should really turn that off when we do this,
Should
but
always do manual. Always do
yeah, I
manual.
should always do manual. It's a little too late now, but
It's okay.
thank you for
It's all
pointing
right.
that out. I do always actually wonder that. That's why I have you here, Steven, to remind me of these things.
That's what I'm here.
I need a backup
But
man.
yeah, well, that's what. Yeah, we're supposed to help each other out. So yeah, look out for that next Monday, and yeah, for now, I think that's it. Once again, appreciate everybody listening live, watching live. You can find me on Facebook at Stephen Billings or at the other Chasing Labels pages, whether it's our X page or our Instagram. Andrew, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Kebzilla06 or X as it's called now, and I guess forever. Who knows? And of course, here on YouTube with Chasing Labels YouTube channel.
Awesome. Well, with that said, guys, everybody have a good rest of your night, a good day, I guess, for you, Tony, out in Australia, there in the future. And hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.